Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Get Geek podcast, where we celebrate geek, nerd, and pop culture. Each week, we deliver the best analysis for fans, by fans, on anything related to movies, TV, video games, comics, anime, and manga. We talk geek. And now, here's the Get Geek podcast.
Are you kidding me? He helped him get on board.
That's not getting the child,
That's
though.
not helping him get the child. That's not helping him get the child.
That's helping, but not getting the child. And I thought the whole thing
He
was like,
helped him get the
we
child.
have to get the
No,
child.
No.
It's a piece of the puzzle.
Boba wasn't meant to go get the child for him. It's to
No.
help him.
Yeah, I know. But he left before it happened.
Should we tell
Are you
people that
kidding me?
we're in spoiler territory yet?
You know, we're
Listen,
recording,
if
by
you
the way.
guys, the way that spoilers
Wait,
have
we're
been
look-
going
what- what?
on the way that spoilers have been going on,
Yeah, I know.
on social media,
That is
there
so
is
true.
no longer a spoiler buffer anymore. It's
I
a
got
thing.
spoiled at least like 3 or 4 times throughout the day
This
before
is
I
the
even got to
worst.
see.
The
Should we
worst.
just change the name of the podcast to Spoiler Alert so it's like an automatic reflex for people that listen?
We'll put it in
Since we spoil stuff.
we'll go ahead
A
and
lot.
put it in the I guess the bio for the episode. In nice big
Get Geek
caps.
Spoiler Alert.
Spoiler.
Spoiler Alert.
We should just change the podcast name to Spoiler Get Geek.
Spoiler.
Get-
Spoiler Geek.
Get
Spoiler
spoiled.
Geek. There you go.
Spoiled.
Get
Or
spoiled.
If
get
you guys
spoiled.
haven't
There you
noticed-
go.
If you guys
Get
haven't noticed, we
spoiled.
are live. We are
News.
live.
Yeah,
We
we're
are
the Get Geek
we're
podcast.
a minute 20 into this. So
Yeah. It was a
Hello.
big week. We'll put it that way. What's going on, all of our friends and fans and denizens of the internet? This is the Get Geek podcast. You are listening to the Get Geek podcast. I'm Jose.
This is Wolfie.
AJ.
Eli.
and this is the Mandalorian not named Din. This is Walt.
Oh man.
It is going to be one of those days. How's everybody doing this week, man? What's going on with you guys? What's
Good.
new and current?
I'm elated with joy with how badass Boba Fett's reveal this entire season was.
Who's doing raspberries?
Who said that? Who did
I can't see. Yeah.
I don't know.
Walt?
What? Who?
Huh? Yeah.
Not I. Not I, said the
Uh-huh.
pussycat.
Sure.
Not I.
Sure.
No
So-
clue.
Guys, can we just get this out of the way? Okay. Boba Fett's a badass. A certified badass. Like an indisputable badass.
He had his moments, I guess.
All of his
Sort of.
moments were his moments.
Meh.
I mean, sometimes
kidding me?
WWE wrestlers get the better of him, but that's okay. It's just a momentary lapse. in
Technically, that ended in a draw. I'll give you
badassery.
that.
It did.
DDT.
It did. It did. Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
That was but I mean, you figured it had to happen because of the character or because of the casting of the person who did that move
Of
on Boba.
course. Of course. I mean, when
It had to happen eventually.
when The Rock first got on, what was his signature move? Every movie he did, he had to do the rock bottom, right? So
Mhm.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
it
He
had
did
to happen.
indeed.
Wait,
And
hold
it
on.
didn't
Walt,
spoil
Walt,
it
It,
too.
Walt,
it,
Walt,
ju-
hold
it
on,
just
Walt,
happened to
Walt,
happen. It just
Walt.
happened to happen that it happened to Boba Fett.
To no effect. To absolutely no
Spectacularly.
effect. Are you kidding me?
What had happened was
That was probably
Hold
the
on, Walt,
highlight of the
Walt.
entire episode.
Walt, are you gonna sit here and say that Boba Fett is not a badass?
he is.
I asked Walt.
I'm sorry.
Answer the fans.
I
Answer the
got-
world.
I'm gonna step away because I got to go to the bathroom. So
No.
just give me a
Let's
minute.
go. No. Come on.
Exactly.
Answer.
Indigestion, dude. Indigestion. Give me a second.
He's got to run.
How's it gonna run? He has no legs.
Cool. I
Oh.
got legs.
Huh?
Oh, I'm sorry. I confused
Oh.
you for Maul. Damn.
I get it. I
Oh,
get it.
We're going back to that again.
That's a
So-
swipe at the midsection.
started-
Is
so
what that is.
Let me
You
just put it
started
to you this way. Homeboy got out of a pit in the desert, whereas Maul literally got cut and came back even more badasses than before.
Let me put it to you this
That's
way.
all I gotta say.
Homeboy. let me put it to you this way:
You
Homeboy
were
got
you
out of a
were
pit. No.
you were in the
Homeboy got
dirt.
out of a pit, and he got his own show. Your man's got put at the end of a movie, and then the sequel got canceled.
Yeah, but
Oh,
Maul still
but you
ruled
got to
the
remember.
war.
You got to remember though.
Come on.
Get let's get into all of the lore. Who was one of the most important people in the Star Wars universe? Who was the one that knew that Anakin needed to be stopped and tried to get Ahsoka on the same page, and she didn't do it? And guess what? Because of her lack of indecision, and because of the
Okay.
fact,
All right.
hey, listen, if she had listened to who Maul, maybe Star Wars doesn't happen. Maybe New Hope doesn't happen. Maybe
Let me ask you this.
Vader doesn't happen.
Let me ask you this.
You know what I'm saying?
What are we reviewing right now?
Huh?
What are we reviewing right now?
The
The
Mandalorian.
boys.
And
Thanks
how
to
good is
Maul.
this show? How
Thanks-
good is this
Thanks
show?
to Maul. Thanks
How
to
good
Maul.
is this show?
Well, huh?
How
Listen,
I
good is
liked
the
it. It was
show?
okay.
listen, at the end of the day, I'm just playing around with you. I do
No,
like
no, no.
the show. I do
No.
like the show. I
I'm
do like the show.
interrogating you. All right.
I do like the show.
And who inspired the show?
Django Fett.
Oh
Yeah.
my god!
Django.
Dude,
Thank
are
you.
freaking
Django.
kidding me?
Thank you.
Are you guys kidding?
All right.
None of this would
wait,
happen if
We
it wasn't
we
for the
should stop.
fans.
We should
If,
talk
if
about.
it wasn't for the Boba Fett fans, if it wasn't for us, we would not have Django Fett. We would not have freaking The Mandalorian. We would not have this awesome 4-episode ending to this season.
I'm thinking we should continue because this is gonna continue relentlessly from Walt and the boys
No, I'll stop.
anyway.
I'll stop.
As the episode goes on. I bet.
For the sake of the show, I will stop.
For the sake of the show. Okay.
Okay, yeah, this is a truce. This is a truce
It's
for a
an
moment
Boba Fett
at least.
forces no truces.
uncomfortable truth.
But we should also kind of get our disclaimers out. We are recording. We are recording remotely.
Yeah, this
if
is
you hear
remote.
Any kind of like we've done a pretty good job of ironing out any kind of audio artifacts. But if you hear any sirens, if you hear any sound like that, if you hear any
That was
dogs
intentional.
barking and running around and all that
And that
stuff,
wasn't me.
it's due to the current circumstances. So I hope that
Is-
you guys are
is-
staying safe.
Is this not the craziest start of an episode that we've had so far?
Very clearly, but we still got to get through it. So let me finish.
Okay, let's go.
And so again, we hope that you bear with us as we iron out all these weird, audio issues that we might have, including these weird sounding, supposedly Boba Fett sucks kind of, noise distractions. Just kind of, disregard anything that sounds anything like that or Walt's voice.
Yeah, and if any of it works as well as Disney Plus Group Watch, then please let us know because we can't allow it to be that bad.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah, I can't believe they didn't figure it out by the end of the season. And of course, as always, please like, rate, share, and subscribe.
Please.
Show us some love. If you guys are already listening to the podcast, I hope that you guys are enjoying the the episodes that we put on so far. If you're a new listener, thank you for checking us out. Bear with us, enjoy the show, and hit the share button and let people know what we're up to. So formalities are done, I think. You guys know what I've been up to. I've just been enjoying this Mandalorian ride. What about you guys?
I have been either playing or watching my girlfriend continue to play Civilization for probably like 100 hours by now since I mentioned it on the podcast a few weeks ago. It's a pretty addicting game. So we are playing it multiplayer. We're playing our own single player missions. We're playing a lot of Civilization. So we've been taking over the world slowly but surely over and over and over again. It's fun. You guys should try it. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. We've been doing what everybody else in society is doing right now and mostly staying indoors, which is why video games are definitely a nice distraction. And so was this episode. What about you guys?
So, remember how last time I revealed how much of a bona fide maniac I could be when it comes to GTA 5?
Yes.
Here's part 2.
He's gotten worse.
You did this with Eli, I know, because I know you guys were playing it online the other day, weren't you?
Yes. So,
Okay.
Recently, I've perfected my plane bombing technique.
There's plane bombing.
Planes?
Remember that.
So what I like to do is I like to steal planes from the airport and just crash them places.
Oh wow.
Oh, you're kamikazing
Yeah.
people.
Well,
That's
I
not
finally
bombing
found a
anything.
way so that I
That's
don't
effed
die
up.
in the process.
Can you jump out?
Yes, I
Parachute?
bought myself a parachute. I unlocked it.
You're the worst.
That's like just
There's that
cause.
evil cackle.
So now what
Again.
I do is I aim the plane at a building, but it has to be a building near this casino.
Why?
I'll
Why?
tell
Yeah.
you why.
Okay.
So the plane, I get out of it, it crashes into this building or the freeway, and
Okay.
I make sure to parachute onto the top of the casino. And
Okay.
then what
So
I
you can
do is
watch
I
it.
just start randomly sniping people.
Jesus. My lord.
So they're watching the plane come in and crash into a building, and then they just start getting picked off one by. So absolutely nobody has any idea what's going on in that moment. Basically, it's complete chaos.
It gets to the point where I'm so well entrenched on the rooftop of this casino that not even SWAT can land a proper helicopter onto the top of the building,
That's what
because
rocket
I've
launchers
decked
are for.
myself out with basically military grade weapons, and anytime they get close with a chopper, I just blow it out of the sky with an RPG.
All right,
Oh
Hey.
man.
more insanity in
Yeah.
GTA 5.
This is the other thing really quick that I did. Yeah. Walt recently got us the Oculus. And so we've been doing
What?
that.
What game did you guys try? I guess
I
real quick before we get too deep into it.
I've been personally going ham on chapter 3 of Vader Immortal. I've been doing the lightsaber dojo. And man, using two lightsabers is like really it's so helpful.
What
Cuz
about
now
you, other guy?
while I can block with one hand, I can just throw the lightsaber at anything else. It's just so
All right.
bomb. But yeah, that's what I've been up to.
Wait, what's the game called?
Which one? The robot game? Robo Recall Unplugged.
Recall. Unplugged.
For the
What is
Oculus.
that?
For the Oculus.
Oculus, yeah.
It's literally like a game where like robots like turn evil and you have to kill all of them. It's Matrix style too,
Yeah.
which is crazy. Like
Like bullet time?
yeah, like you could literally bullet time it slow and you can like headshot grab robots. It's crazy.
Yeah, you can pick
Pick up
bullets from the sky and then throw them back to the robot
Yeah.
and blow them up with it. You know,
Damn.
so,
That sounds cool.
Yeah, it's super crazy. I've also been doing GTA Online as AJ said. Yeah.
Oh.
Did you guys give up on like the DBC battles?
Yeah.
I don't. Life's too short to argue about such small things.
which means they do it
I mean,
still every
Gogeta is
night.
still better.
So that's all that means.
Yes, he is better.
Yeah, he is.
Yes.
That's why he's coming out now.
Yep.
And that's why Vegito is gonna suck.
Yep, he
Because
will.
he's a pretty trash unit.
Yep.
Gogeta will be better
Yep, he will.
considering he's
Oh my
he's
god,
coming out late.
Yep.
They're agreeing on something.
That's the trick. You just have
What?
to say yes to everything.
Yeah, so Vegeta is
Ah.
better.
Oh,
Right?
you're gonna do
Yep,
great
he
when you
is.
find a
Baby
partner and
sucks.
get
Yep,
married.
he is.
Vegito sucks.
Yep, he sucks.
Omega Shenron sucks.
Yep, Omega
Super
Shenron
Baby
sucks.
2 sucks.
Yep, he sucks
GT
too.
sucks.
Yes, GT.
All
sucks.
right, we gotta move
Supernatural
on.
sucks.
Watch it.
What about you, Walt? What's up?
Oh man.
All right, last
do
but
you
not
got?
least, I have the most exciting news about what I've been doing. Absolutely nothing.
Cool.
I have been
That's cool.
I have been up in my ears in work. You know, it's the year end and we have multiple projects. So, you know, I was lucky enough today with you, Jose, to play one round of Ghost of Tsushima Legends, and that was it. That's
One.
that's basically been the extent of my great week.
We're both rusty. Wait, you didn't see any of the Expanse yet?
I saw one episode. I was able to do it, but I have to watch it again because I got distracted. So
Oh,
I
that
got to go
sucks.
back. And I know there's what three episodes
Three.
out already, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, three. Should be three because it just came out yeah, a couple of days ago.
Oh,
Yeah.
I will say this, and you might find this interesting.
Wow.
Breaking Bad, we are up to season 2, episode 6, 5.
Finally.
Yes, we've been going through.
Yeah.
I will tell you this, not exactly what I
No.
was expecting.
In a good way?
In a weird way, because I guess my expectation was that Walter White would be like a total badass by now, and he's still not there yet. So
No, he's Breaking Bad.
I know. And it makes sense. But like I said, my expectation was different. So, and I will say this: his wife is mad annoying. That's all I'm gonna say.
She is. I do
Skylar.
remember it. Like, I actually did not like
Skylar.
her that much. Like, when I was watching it, because again, I haven't seen the last season. But
Really?
yeah, I haven't. It was one of those things that, like, the last season came out, and I kind of breezed through the fourth season, and I wanted to rewatch it, but then it kind of felt like a little bit of a chore to rewatch it, and I just never got around to it. But
Yeah,
one of the reasons she's really annoying to me. She's like
she is.
difficult to like enjoy her on screen. I don't know if that was purpose. I feel
Well,
like it might be because maybe we're supposed to feel the way that Walter is feeling, the way that that he's experiencing everything. But that was it was a little cringe for
Yeah.
so.
I think if you gotta finish it. You gotta finish it. Trust me on this one
Oh
because
no, I
I'm
mean
not gonna say
I've
anything
heard
beyond
everything
that,
about the
but
fifth season. I've heard how amazing it is.
oh no, not for that reason. More for the reason of Skylar herself, the actress, the
Mm-hmm.
actor. Oh my goodness,
I don't fault her for her acting
Yeah,
capability
no, I
because
think
she's
she
they're
got a
doing
doing
it
lot
a
of
good
right.
hate
job.
though. She got a
But
lot of hate, which is so unfair because she did a good job
yeah, I
of
know.
being like kind of the shrew, which
Yeah, I
again, it
mean,
gets more complicated than that, but we
yeah,
shouldn't get any deeper into it
yeah.
before
All right.
everybody finishes watching it.
I
I hope
do.
you're enjoying it though.
I will say
And it
this.
gets better.
I think we're on the precipice of Walter White becoming the badass or Heisenberg because he had a moment with Jesse, which was like, okay, now I see where this is going. So I'll just leave it
Okay.
at that.
Yeah, it gets better. By the end of season 2, like going into season 3 is where it really starts to pick up in my opinion. But that's again, that's subjective. But that's how I feel. I hope you enjoy it. We'll see.
Yep.
All right.
Okay, so I guess we can go into our, main purpose of of this get together over here, which is gonna be
Mhm.
chapter what is it, 16, I guess?
Yes, he says.
Episode 8 of
Yep.
The second season of The Mandalorian. And in case you didn't realize, we're gonna go into full spoilers. So there's your one and only warning from here on out.
I think we did that
Um
already, right?
We
oh,
did, but
we did,
At
but like
at
we
the
didn't spoil
very
like the
beginning of the
major
episode.
stuff. I mean, if anything, we only spoiled the after credits, sort of.
sort
Okay,
of. Yeah.
so real quick, I just kind of want to go around, the room, the table, the virtual table, and get like quick
Mhm.
impressions on like what you thought of just the episode, not the season. We're gonna get into our review of the season at the end, but
Mhm.
just this episode, what did you guys think? Me personally, I loved the episode from beginning to end. Um, it was interesting how they threw us into the episode, into the action right away without any kind of setup, which was, I get, pretty cool. It's awesome to see the Slave One in action, but I had all kinds of emotions. I felt like in this episode I experienced the highs and the lows. I got a little bit emotional towards like the end. I think everybody that had any kind of investment in the
Yeah.
relationship between Din Djarin and Grogu had all the feels, all the emotions. But overall, I thought the episode was great. Personally, what about you guys?
Yeah.
I will go.
Oh, okay.
Or
Go.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and give my impressions. Okay, so for me, the episode, it was awesome. It was totally awesome because it, except for one aspect of it, which I think a lot of people suspected was the case and might happen, it subverted what I thought was going to happen to end season two. So, and it did it in a very, very cool and very, very interesting and very action packed way, a very well acted way. It had some great moments uh, with the crew, the battle crew, with let's just say with like some kind of Rogue One moments with them kind of running through hallways and shooting people. But it was in general, yeah, it was amazing. And of course, the payoff. Oh, the payoff was everything that us Star Wars fans have probably been waiting for. I would say for a few years now to really feel, and that's my impression of it. It was okay.
For me, I liked it to a fault. I liked where it was going, and then it ended, and it ended with a very peculiar situation. And it really feels like, based on the information we're getting, that we're just dropping it right there. And I kind of have a problem with that. But otherwise, I did like the episode. I did like the guest star
Mm-hmm.
appearance.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just pretty good through and through. Some people abandon their teammates, but that happens sometimes.
Shots
It,
fired across the bow.
it was good. It was cool, except it wasn't as cool as the other episodes, at least for me. It just didn't feel as
Oh,
suspenseful
Okay.
and stuff.
really?
Like the
This is
beginning,
like, oh man, wow,
the
okay.
beginning, the beginning to like a little bit after the middle, it was really really awesome. But then like towards the end, it was getting a little bit meh for me. I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
Just
Okay.
for me.
We'll discuss.
All right, I guess that leaves me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I thought it was a very, very well done episode. I like Peyton Reed was the director for this episode. Mr. Ant Man over there,
Mm-hmm.
he directed those, and I thought it was a well paced episode. It had a lot of really high points. Um, one of them being, no, I won't get into that, but I did have slight issues with two things that happened in the episode, and I think both you guys know. Well, I think everybody knows, my issues with the episode. But
Yeah.
it wasn't enough to distract me from how well the episode was done. So generally, the one thing I will say, it did feel like an ending. That's the one thing that I got out from, you know, when we finished it. It felt like we were. I don't want to say too much. You know what? I'll just leave it at that because we will get into that a little bit later. But I did think
Okay.
it was a really, really good episode.
All right. Well, so with that being said, let's give you guys a quick synopsis, a little bit of a recap. We are,
Spoilers.
we are
Full spoilers now. Yeah.
at this point. Din has already in the previous episode we were left off with him getting the coordinates, sending his taken message to Moff Gideon. Moff Gideon fully expect, or at least should be expecting him
You
to
have
be coming
something
through.
I want.
And we get thrown in with right into the action. They're boarding the ship and going into rescue Grogu. Um,
Well, first we
so
have the moment where they find the Pershing, Dr. Pershing, right? Because that was a cool scene
oh
at the
yes,
beginning.
that was, oh man, I almost
That was
forgot
a
about that.
dope
Right
scene.
at the
Don't
beginning,
don't
yes.
move past it. Yeah.
Before that's right before.
Yeah.
Oh man, we actually got to talk about that scene. That scene is
Yes.
really awesome.
And
But
we
yeah, so
will.
anyway, as far as the episode goes, that's where we are. They're on their rescue mission to find and rescue Grogu, and a bunch of face-offs or confrontations have already been previously set up. Right, you have Din looking for Grogu, Bo Katan looking for Moff Gideon, and so on and so forth. And the question of like who, if any, Jedi will come to the aid of Grogu and Din Djarin and the folks over here. So
Mhm.
going right into it, let's talk about that first scene. Actually, the initial intro scene where the what's the doctor? What's his name again?
Dr.
Dr.
Pershing.
Pershing, played
Doctor
by
Pershing.
Omid Abtahi, I
Right
believe is
when
his
they
name.
get boarded, so they get boarded by Din Djarin and Cara Dune. And it was set up with it's such an awesome like scene, like a whole
Yeah.
Mexican standoff right there, and it was just such a cool scene for Cara Dune. I feel like between the two seasons, we've been waiting for like Cara Dune's like super impactful moment. I feel like this was the one. Do you guys feel
I
that way?
liked I liked the episode. I think this was the culmination of a couple of impactful moments. Maybe this was the most impactful, but I think that it was really awesome when she had that conversation with Blue, with the rebel officer, played by the gentleman from Kim's Convenience.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was because that was kind of where you saw a turning point for her. But this was a big moment too. I mean, this was the climax in a way for her character's arc, and it's definitely gonna make a huge difference, I think, in where she goes as a character moving forward,
Right.
um, if and when we see her again. Um, but I mean, the scene was freaking awesome. I thought it was really cool how they set it up with the Slave One chasing that Imperial shuttle. Like that was a really cool, like if not short action scene. And the co-pilot played by Thomas E. Sullivan, that really creepy dude, man. Like, what did you guys think of that? I thought he was for that short scene. I think him and Gina Carano played off each other incredibly well. I don't know. What did you guys think of that?
It was
I mean, I
pretty
that's
huh?
yeah.
Mhm.
No, go on.
It was pretty harrowing, you know. He was all like, I was on the Death Star when your planet blew up. And she was like, oh, which Death Star? And he was like, oh, very funny. I haven't heard that one before. It was really, it was pretty funny, but at the same time, you know that that conversation packed like a lot of weight.
Yeah.
Well,
It was
it's
very
funny that you
intense.
find it funny because to me that was kind of
Okay, well, it
like
was
if
funny
you
in that, they each had their own little thing.
yeah
Yeah, I guess I can see what you're saying. Where you have he talked about, so he said he was on the Death Star that destroyed Alderaan,
yeah
right? And she's from Alderaan, but he was also talking about the Imperial loss. He said that millions
yeah.
of people died on both of those Death Stars too. So even though that guy was
Well,
really scary, dude, like kind of like evil,
Yeah, he was
he had
cold
a
though.
point,
Yeah.
kind of.
the thing for me that I grabbed from that scene is something that we didn't really get. Um, I think even from in the original trilogy or any of the Star Wars films, where
Mhm.
you have like when we saw the Death Star destroying Alderaan and all that stuff is obviously like a oh my god moment, but it was just an oh my god moment for the shock of like there's this machine or this weapon that can destroy entire planets. Not so much ever for the amount of people that died. Like if you think back on it, when I saw that scene, I didn't think to myself, "Oh my god, they just killed millions and millions of people." Or when the Death Star got destroyed, "Oh my god, a bunch of Imperial officers, millions of them have died." In this scene, we got like I feel like the like how much hate they actually have for each other for the actions that each of them took.
It was the sequel to the conversation from Clerks, where he talks about the contractors on the Death Star getting blown up, and they were just trying to go about their day and handle their
Yeah,
business.
actually, yeah. That's true.
Oh,
But it was just such
It's
an intense scene.
it's
Yeah.
he got shot
also
in the face, dude.
it's
Has that
also
happened in Star Wars?
no.
Has anybody ever gotten shot in the face
Yeah,
in
Not
Star
not really,
I
Wars?
no.
remember there
Yeah.
being at least one instance. I just
In the
can't
I,
in
put
the
a
in the
name
mask
to
and
the
the
face,
can
helmet.
you
and there's a
can
reason
you
why.
name it? Like who got shot in the face in Star Wars? Like that was pretty intense.
Like, I
I
mean,
think
it's
Cara Dune.
mostly been extras though.
Yeah,
It's not been anyone main.
Yeah, but nothing that close.
Oh,
yeah.
not
Yeah.
that close,
Yeah.
fine.
That
But
Mexican
people
standoff,
have
like
gotten
Wolfie
shot
Yeah,
in
said.
the face before.
yeah.
Cool.
It also shows how I mean, Cara Dune's obviously a badass, but it really shows that she's not like just a badass warrior. she gave him a chance, and she can also be heartless. And if you notice, at the end of that scene, she shoots and then just walks away, and Din is just looking at her like, "Damn, woman." You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like kind
yeah,
of
that was a
a
nice
look
moment.
of shock. Like even Din couldn't believe that she did that.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought
Yeah,
that like there was a lot to grab from there. So
Yeah.
um,
Oh.
so so from there we get the Pershing uh confirms that the child is on the Moff's starship, and he describes and tells them about like the dark troopers and all that. We're gonna get into the dark troopers, but we're still in the I guess the infiltration phase, and here's where we get pretty much Boba's only role in the episode, where Boba serves to kind of be a decoy, sort of, or they have this plan of like warp speeding into the starship, in front of the starship, with Boba shooting them, kind of giving them chase and making it look like he's really shooting them, forcing the starship to allow the Imperial cruiser to
Really
board.
quick, I think
yeah.
we're forgetting
The
something.
hijacked Imperial shuttle. What's that?
Before that, they enlist the help of Bo-Katan and her, I guess, confidant.
Yeah, we're gonna get into Boba's role and all that stuff, but again, like Boba's role as far as the episode goes is to help them infiltrate onto the starship and everything, as well as a very very big and important piece of information that we got from Boba's mouth. You guys can laugh. Go ahead. It's
Yeah.
okay. I'm allow it.
Yes.
Does anybody want to get into that? Oh, now you're silent, Walt.
I said I was
Wait,
gonna be
what?
good. I said I
What?
was gonna
What?
be good for the rest of the
Well, we
episode,
got to
right?
talk about it.
With the clone confrontation? What do we? What are we?
It
What are
sounds
we
like I've
speaking of
heard your voice
specifically?
1,000 times. That was straight up cold, bro. I
Yeah,
hate
you
Ouch.
to
want to know
say
what's
it.
even colder? When he said, "Mine might be the last one you hear."
That was a good line. I will
And then
give
he
you
got
that.
DDT'd.
Exactly. So
He rolled out of the DDT.
He got
He didn't get DDT'd.
tornado. He got rocket tornado DDT'd by Sasha
that
freaking Banks.
was nice. That was a nice
Yes,
one.
it was great.
And you
It's
know what?
awesome.
That,
It is
that
great
just
that they know how to use Mandalorian tactics since they're Mandalorians.
well, you know what? I just to comment on the action and the inventive ways that they had in fighting. That wasn't the only instance because they did it a bunch of times, which I commend them for because
Yeah.
there was some really, if you really slowed down some of the fights, there was some really wow moves that they were putting out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
In fairness, I think she kind of caught him like by surprise with how capable she was. So I will give him that because
listen, she's a Mandalorian.
you
He
know
should have
Yeah, I
known
was gonna
better.
say that. I
Yeah,
was gonna say that like it's discrediting her
yeah,
as a Mandalorian, and I don't think and Boba Fett isn't necessarily. I wouldn't say that Boba Fett is necessarily the kind of guy like he doesn't fight like underestimating people in my opinion.
right.
But
he doesn't respect the Mandalorians in a way either, even though
Yeah, but
he has a complicated relationship
there's a
with like
you
the
difference
know,
Mandalorians.
between there's a difference between not respecting and underestimating. You can
yeah,
Yeah.
not respect somebody
Okay.
but not underestimate
Okay.
them. You know what I mean?
Okay.
again, I feel like we're not gonna know this until we get the more information in the future, which we're gonna talk about how we're gonna get that information. But we're not gonna get we there is a lot to understand with Boba Fett's relationship with the Mandalorian creed, culture, and all that stuff.
We might get some of that
So
backstory.
so
Maybe.
in this episode, we got basically some sort of possible confirmation that Boba is not a Mandalorian, simply because Bo says you're not Mandalorian, and Boba Fett responds, "I never said I was," in the most menacing, most badass way that he could.
Oh God,
Are you kidding me? Are you
seriously?
serious?
Come on now.
You're
Listen,
gonna say,
with all due respect, and I'm not saying this just to kind of poke the wolf here, but what I
"Oh,
do find
really?"
interesting is that there they it almost seemed, and I don't know if you got this, but Django Fett they kind of were okay with. It was Boba, the fact that he was a clone, and I think that was the thing that really stuck to them, was the fact that he's not, I guess naturally
Yeah,
made. You
but
know what I mean? I
see,
think that
His
was that
donor.
was more the sticking point that she had in terms of, oh well, you're not a Mandalorian because he's a clone, which is understandable, but maybe, and I think it's the second part that really um hits home for her, knowing that all the clones turned on everybody. Maybe that's more of her issue with him, because, like she said, I've heard your voice 1,000 times. That wasn't necessarily kind of like a dig on him. That could be a general thing where it's like, you're one of those guys that betrayed us.
That's
So maybe
true.
maybe that could be part of it.
That's true, and I understand that from like her point of view. But this
Right.
also kind of goes like the way that I look at this is that like this is like I feel like Boba's being like sort of discriminated against because remember, Boba was even though he was Django's clone. Django asked for him to not be altered, not be given any like additional aging genes and all that stuff. He wanted him to just basically be his son. So to me, he's like he's kind of living with the same issues that I feel like, and I can't say this speaking from experience because I'm not adopted, but adopted children who grow up and then they aren't accepted part of like a race or family or whatever because they're adopted. So they kind of act
Mhm.
out a little bit more of a defensive manner, and that's kind of what I see and saw in that scene is that just because he's a clone, that now he's not worthy. You know what I mean?
I think we definitely are going to need to see if they decide to explore this any more, which I think they might, because they
I
have the
th-
Boba Fett show coming out. They have to explore a little bit more about the now canon relationship. I guess it's not confirmed, but it's confirmed by the iconography and the sigil, I think, on Boba Fett's armor, right? The Jasta Mareel connection.
right,
They gotta really dig into that, I think, in
Well,
the future, in order to make this well, it's gonna be super interesting in order to kind of clarify even
right.
further like what Boba Fett's whole relationship
So
is.
this is where I have like cause to like say that I don't think that you can just take everything on face value just because he said a certain line and stuff like that, because it really does seem like he follows all the Mandalorian ways, but in his own way, right? Like he doesn't need to offer Din Djarin
How
any kind of help for rescue. He
how
doesn't need to
how so?
prove, huh?
How so?
Well, this is what I'm trying to explain, right? He doesn't need to prove that he's the rightful owner of the armor. He doesn't. He also has clearly, an excellence in using the Mandalorian fighting tactics. You know, um, and he doesn't need to explain and represent all of this
No,
if
I
he
I
wasn't
get
Mandalorian.
I
You
get
know,
that, but I don't necessarily agree with the fact that he does everything the Mandalorian way, because
yeah.
quite honestly, I don't think he gives a crap. I don't
I
think
no,
was
no, no,
gonna
he
say,
doesn't. What I'm
you
what
know.
I'm saying is that like
So that's
that
why
that
I'm a little, you
you know
know.
uh, and again what I'm saying is that like it's not so much that like he because very clearly there's more than one Mandalorian way. There's Din and how he perceives the way that's most likely the Death Watch way, and then you have Bo-Katan's more pacifist, or rather the true Mandalorian way as it's was in the expanded universe. And then who knows how Boba Fett sees the Mandalorian way, or if maybe he doesn't see himself as a Mandalorian, but it doesn't necessarily mean that he wasn't or can be or isn't. It's all
Yeah.
dependent more, I think, on like the information that we're gonna get. And I said this in the group chat that like the Mandalorian Creed seems to be a lot more like a religion, and I mean, so is the Jedi Order. It seems like, and the Sith, and all that. Um, but just like in as the parallels in our own real world, in a lot of religions, you don't necessarily have to like belong to like that specific order to lead a life like that religion. Not to name any specific religions, but like I feel like that's more the angle that Boba Fett kind of falls in as far as my perception of it. So
Yeah, what, I actually really agree with that. And to expand on like how he said that he wasn't a Mandalorian, I don't. Uh, I I'd
I,
like to agree because I really do think that he didn't. He just said that. Like it didn't. It's like the words had no meaning. I guess
yeah,
it's
I,
like
I think I think he was just being defensive.
yeah,
He was like, you're not gonna tell me what to do or who I am or whatever. He's not gonna
yeah.
like he's just that kind of guy. You know. Oh my god, I have a Melger on my side on this. Yes.
I'm not
What
totally
a-
on your side,
You're
Oh
on
my
his
god,
side.
what the heck?
but
Wow. Unbelievable.
I kind
I
of
told them to say that. I told them to say that to make you happy.
Sure. Uh-huh. Okay. Anyway, so how do you guys feel about like Boba's role, right? Because we have that situation that happened in the I guess the cantina. You know, it seems like the Mandalorian is really like that. Like Bo-Katan loves hanging out at the bar. Um
Yeah, where was that other guy that they had in the previous episode? They had like there's some dude
well
with them.
well,
Where'd he go?
it's funny because like when the first when they first showed them right after that episode aired, there was a news confirmation showing that like he wasn't gonna show up again. And everybody's like, oh no way, they're gonna of course they're gonna come back. But I guess they really meant that he wasn't signed on to do another episode.
Maybe he was just part of that task force that they were doing
Yeah,
at the time,
yeah,
and it basically,
Yeah, maybe.
the other one is more her buddy, anything
yeah,
else. You know what
maybe.
I'm saying?
Well, they're part of like their own little sector or clan in
Yeah,
the Mandalorian
Yeah.
universe, right? The
yeah.
like a female clan of Mandalorians. So maybe they just they wanted to do it the lady way this week.
Right. So again, so after recruiting Bo-Katan and commencing the infiltration mission, Boba Fett helps them get on board. They finally do get on board, and Boba Fett just bounces. Which for me, he fulfilled his job. That was his role. That was his job. He doesn't need to stick around.
So I'm gonna say that I understand why they did it, but I thought it was kind of a semi cop out. And you know why?
Why?
I kind of can't say fully, but if he were there at the end of the episode, he would be really mad at somebody that showed up at the end of the episode and they didn't want to deal with that conflict, right? I mean, he'd be upset because the
Oh,
last
That's
time
true.
in
That's
in
true.
a certain movie they had some issues with each other. Brief, however they were, and yeah, he wasn't responsible for what happened or whatever, but you guys know what I'm talking about, and we'll talk
Right, but
about it
yeah.
when we
I
get to
also,
that
Certain
point.
stick
I
hit a
also think that
certain
you.
rising phoenix.
What was that?
I said when a certain
Yeah,
staff hit a certain rising phoenix.
Sure,
yeah,
yes.
we're not. Yeah,
It's inconsequential because he's alive, so it doesn't matter. I don't think that that would have been actually an issue because remember, Boba Fett was a hired gun. That's it.
Yeah, I
Like he
kind of
has
agree
no
with
real.
that also.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
If he was there,
but
I think they'd be like, well, like, hey, what's up? Like maybe not have like a buddy
He
friendship, but I don't think that he would care, right? Like
he's
like
just
that.
part of the scenery. You know.
Yeah.
I see. Okay, we got to talk about it later, but I think based on what he did later in the episode, I don't think that he is actually very cool with some of the people that were there when what happened to him, and I think that that's
Mm,
confirmed at the end of the episode. He held a grudge, but we'll
mm,
leave it at that for now.
I don't know.
He was pretty specific with where he went, very specific.
I
That's all I'm saying.
understand that. I
But
understand that.
there
But
was
he
also
also
a
could have.
reason. There was also a reason for that because
Yeah.
there was a void, a vacuum that he could
Yeah.
easily. But you know what? Let's talk about
But
that later.
Yeah.
still.
So, yeah, I mean, you know,
So Boba Fett was all right in this episode, I guess.
Yeah.
it wasn't just
Right.
all right.
Now
I,
let's
I
talk.
I will say this: Slave One was awesome in this episode. I mean, um, just seeing it and watching it take out, it was awesome to actually see Slave One doing something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Which it did happen in Attack of the Clones, I will say, but it wasn't as impactful as this. I mean, this one, there was dogfights and everything. It was pretty good.
Well, I breathed a sigh of relief too, honestly, because you know how the final or penultimate or final episode of every TV show now has to kill somebody off. So when he kind of hyperspaced away, I was like, okay, cool, he's off the table.
He's
Yeah.
not on the list. Not
Yes,
on the
like,
list.
there's almost no way that he's
Yeah.
gonna be off in this episode. Perfect.
So, yeah.
I mean, unless he hits
And
his
we're
big
we're gonna get into exactly where he went. He obviously had very good reason to do what he had to do. Anyway, so the next thing that we got is we get Dark Troopers activated. Now we saw them previously activated by Moff Gideon to actually take the child, you know. But this time, we have basically like a whole squadron of, or rather battalion of Dark Troopers, and it's kind of crazy because it seems like they were very, very akin to T-1000s
Yeah, and I was gonna say
or
like,
T-800s.
yeah, they as cool as they look, they really just struck me as glorified T-800s.
And
Yeah,
did you guys notice if you look at their faces carefully, their like mask, the helmet, it's very Vader esque.
Yeah,
it is.
that's what
Yeah,
I
it is.
said.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what you
yeah.
said, Eli. Yeah, I 100%.
He was so mad about that when I told him that. AJ.
Who?
AJ. Because he
It's
says
true though.
nothing should be like Vader.
It
I
is
mean,
a dark homage.
well, I
Well,
mean, if you
there's
look,
kind of a Vader motif there, right? Because Moff
yeah,
Gideon's got the whole
yeah, yeah,
Vader
exactly.
vibes and stuff,
Yeah.
so kind of
I
makes
mean,
sense.
the
That's right.
Inquisitors, they got like a Vader vibe too. It's almost like the SS of the Empire have like their own special uniform, just like the SS of the Nazis had like
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
own
Yep.
like uniform and special like aura of like nastiness to them and stuff.
Yeah, the
Um,
Empire is very much a cult of personality,
yeah,
right? Because
yeah,
they're all
exactly.
like super into Vader, like just like Kylo
Right,
Ren. I mean,
right.
he's related, but like it was all influenced by Vader and Palpatine, very much so when it comes to these offshoots of the Empire. Hmm.
Right. So with the Dark Troopers, and after they infiltrate the squadron of females, which is Bo-Katan, Fennec, um, what's the other Mandalorian's name? I forgot.
Casca, Casca
Casca.
Reeves.
Yeah.
Yeah, Casca Reeves. Hmm.
So they kind of provide the distraction, or the distraction, so that Mando, or rather Din Djarin, can kind of sneak in and try to like find Grogu, and he runs into the Dark Troopers, and this is where like we see, one Dark Trooper actually escapes while the rest of the battalion are stuck in a room, um, and we just see what one Dark Trooper was doing to Din, and it was pretty freaking wild. It also kind of explains why they had to put in the Beskar staff or spear in the show, because nothing, like no blaster, no fire, nothing works on the Dark
I
Troopers.
mean, there was
Well,
one thing.
there was
What?
one
Yeah.
thing
What thing?
later.
Yeah.
There was something. Someone.
Mhm.
That's different. We're talking about like conventional weapons.
No, yeah, that was a cool fight.
Who
Between the
wants to
T eight
who
hundred
wants to kind of
and Din Djarin.
describe the fight and all the details?
I could do it real quick. First off, I got to shout out very quickly, not to backtrack, but Ming Na Wen is 57 years old, and she had some
Holy
cool
crap!
action
Yes.
in this episode. I just got to say, she dodged a laser bolt. That's all I got to say. She like matrixed a laser bolt, which was sick. So shout out to Cara Dune and Gina Carano, Fennec Shand, Ming Na Wen, Bo Katan, Kitty Sackhoff, and Sasha Banks as Casca Reeves, the badass crew. But so the Din Djarin fight, like, yeah, it was like a T-800 fighting another T-800 because that helmet was really really durable. So like the one, just to I guess to describe it as quickly as possible, the one Dark Trooper kind of breaks out because they're getting activated. Dr. Pershing says earlier that they can't be kept on full power because they take up too much power, so they're slowly activating them. They're trying to bash down the door. Din Djarin's trying to close the door in the room that they're in, and one of them slips out and like throws him into the wall, like bashes his helmet in with its fists, like slaps him away, takes the whistling birds, like just like it was nothing, just hits him with that. Like Din Djarin tries everything, shoots it with his blaster, nothing works. And like you said, Wolfie, he takes the spear, the Beskar spear, and that's the only thing. He kind of pokes it under the Dark Trooper's neck and pops it off. And that's the only thing that he's able to do to stop this Dark Trooper, because that's how badass it is, basically. And then he vents. He releases the other Dark Troopers into space, right? So problem solved. Dark Trooper's dead. No problem, right, guys?
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, no, they were
Seriously?
fine. Yeah, yeah. There
No.
was those things. Whatever.
Like,
Yeah,
you had the first episode they're inaugurated in. They can clearly fly. They're
yeah.
droids. They don't breathe.
I said the
Really?
same. Yeah, I said the same thing. I was like, I hope that this is not. I'm glad that that wasn't how they were defeated, but I was like, I hope that they don't think that that's actually going to do it, because they flew down from the spaceship to take Grogu.
Like,
Uh,
one thing I will say is, while again I kind of feel like they're cliched, they I guess fill the part pretty well. Like, imagine if you had a bunch of these things back in the old days
yeah,
when
instead
the
of
Empire was
shortcuts.
having the rebellion on the run. Ooh, you would have needed like 1,000 Yodas and Lukes and whatnot.
Which
Like
they
that,
didn't
that would have
have.
been, oh my god. I
Yeah,
don't
they
even
would have
want
run.
to think about how they would have had to deal with that.
Yeah. What about what do you think, Eli? Did you like this action scene and like this kind of quick setup and the fight between Din Djarin and that first Dark Trooper? I mean, is that where the episode lost you, or was it after that?
No, uh that was good and all, but even still, I
Yeah.
still have a problem with how slow they are. Like, I get that they're
Well,
tanks and like super
Yeah.
super heavy. They're still really slow.
well,
Like, it's
that's
like kind of
because
weird.
T800s.
Yeah, but like,
Yeah.
here's the thing. Not like the battle and stuff, but it's didn't not take them a while to like get out of the friggin' thing.
Well, yes,
Power up.
because
Yeah,
they
but
had to power up, and they also have to generate enough force and build up the force they need to punch through the.
not the like to actually like power on.
Oh well, that just
2 minutes, right?
speaks to,
2 minutes, but that's still
2 minutes to turn on.
it
Well,
still seems a
well,
Well,
little
that's
so
because of all the power they pack.
yeah, but
right, but
it's still a little slow.
You figure the
they
Empire would have like a extra backup battery or UPS on
maybe,
that ship
but
to get
here's the
them.
thing. Here's the
No,
thing, right? So
no
if you think
solar
about
Yeah.
panels.
Yeah, something.
if you think
Something.
about it, it does kind of make sense. If you think about like the very first droids that we had in the prequel series, they're very flimsy, they're very light, but they really can't do much other than like point and shoot. These are a little bit more autonomous, but again, there's no body in there, right? If you compare them to like the clone troopers and whatnot, the stormtroopers and all that stuff, they're actual bodies in there. So if you're comparing to how they move versus the the dark troopers and stuff like that, like I think it would make sense that like these are mechanical beings and stuff. It's not like even the IG-11s, right? Like the IGs, they move very quickly and stuff like that, but they're also flimsy bodies. They can't just like I don't think that they can fight the way that these dark troopers fight. But
Yeah, because
I
no
have one
blasters work
qualm with
on
this
them.
though.
Yeah.
The
Hmm.
only qualm that I have is that like clearly an entire battalion of dark troopers is a very very scary thing. Um, and in the timeline that Mandalorian is taking place, it's interesting to note that they're pulling these super weapons out of nowhere. Um, that's like, damn, where were they? Where were they during the original trilogy and stuff, or whatever?
I
And it
mean,
kind of feels to me like they pulled a little bit of a first order Imperial Starfleet, where you basically have like 1,000 Death Stars starships at the end of the
Oh
Rise of
yeah,
Skywalker.
the
It's like they
grave
just
of
happen
Star
to pull like out of
Destroyers.
nowhere like these freaking superpower weapons. So I have like a little bit of
well,
an issue with that,
here's
like just
here's the
inserting that
thing
there.
though, because
You have the super battle droids, which you can kind of say that they're. You have the super battle droids, which you can say they're kind of spec up from.
Well, yes, they're
You know,
similar to
Droidicus.
them, but again, the
Droidicus.
difference is in their power output, more or less. Super battle droids didn't have to compensate for autonomous flight.
no,
You
I
know,
know, but what I'm saying is that this is, I guess you can consider that kind of like an upgrade, but it doesn't make sense because that happened in the prequel era. We didn't see any of that stuff in the original
you
trilogy.
you, you
Because
want to know what it?
again, this is what I'm trying to explain. They purposefully deviated away from droids because you had the better clones. But then of course they weaned off the clones
And
because
got regular guys to be
yes.
stormtroopers.
And how would it look if, well, we fought an entire war with these droid guys? Why don't we start putting them in the ringer again? Then they'll bring back vibes of, oh, they're going to be just like the Trade Federation. Maybe we should rise up against them, blah, blah, blah. It could be a whole propaganda thing, also.
Two things. Two things. First, it's too much of a tank. The thing, because I just
Yeah.
realized if you pushed it over and it fell, how would it get up? It can't get up.
It would get up. I don't
It
think
can
it's not
get
like a
up.
turtle.
That's
Like it could put a hand down and get up. I don't
but
think that would have been a problem.
it's so stiff.
My well, my thing is to this
It's not
point
that
in the
stiff.
episode,
Yeah.
they hadn't killed anybody. Didn't kill anybody. They're supposed to be threatening. They beat some dude up and they jumped Din Djarin and they jacked Grogu, and that's it so far.
Yeah, but like
So
the way they
that's
beat
my
up
whole
Din
thing.
Djarin was pretty. I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that he had Beskar, which is the strongest form of metal in the entire galaxy,
He
if
still
it
got brain
wasn't for
damage.
that, like, I mean, I
He
don't know how he
had to.
doesn't have brain.
He had to
Yeah,
have some padding in there, man, because
You know,
yo, I
it was
mean,
pressurized. You know
serious.
that's what it
yeah,
was actually. His
like
helmets. They had a
any,
moment actually. Did you guys notice
Yeah, yeah.
it's a pressure, so his head would move inside the helmet instead of bashing
mm,
against the sides.
yeah,
So that's
it's still like one of those things that like
scientific.
if it's anything other than Beskar, this guy's dead.
Yeah.
Imagine if
Yeah.
he was wearing a
Would have been smashed.
stormtrooper outfit.
Ooh.
Pedro Pascal would have been his head smashed twice in fiction.
Finally
if
get
he didn't
bloody
have
Star
Beskar.
Wars.
Yeah.
Mm.
Worse than that, probably. All right.
And
Yeah.
second thing,
hmm
if they produce like a huge amount of these and these things are so dangerous, where were they in the sequel trilogy?
Well,
That's what I'm saying. Like it's
they
like it's
also
I think
kind of
we'll
lost
find
their
out.
scientific staff there.
Yeah, I think we'll find
Unless
out.
it's
maybe
a Moff
maybe
pet project,
Yeah,
that's what I was gonna
it
say.
could also
Maybe
be exclusive to Gideon.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was
And
gonna say that was probably that. So that
they
it,
might
like
not be able to.
this might have been just the only small battalion. It was Mob's project and stuff like that, and like you know they
Well,
were done for after this.
let's move on
It
to
also might
Moff,
not
shall we?
Yeah,
It also
exactly. Nice
Yeah.
segue. Walt always with the segues.
Thank you,
All
sir.
right.
Walt, why don't you go ahead and talk us through the the scene with Moff and Din Djarin?
So here's my thing. As much as I was kind of disappointed in the fight in chapter, I believe it was what, chapter 14 or 13, the Jedi, between Ahsoka
Mhm.
and the Magistrate. That's not the case with Din versus Moff, because I thought that was a fantastic fight. I mean, they were really going at it. Um, the whole thing with the dark saber not being able to destroy the Beskar was just amazing. And the thing about it is that the kids were like, well, why doesn't he take out the Beskar staff and stuff? And it was like, Moff is being relentless in his attack. He doesn't have time to breathe, but once he took it off, and once he had that chance to pull out that staff, I mean, Din is
Well, wait.
pretty good with that staff, bro. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
we gotta set it up a little bit more. I think though.
Oh
Right?
yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah. That's true. That's true.
that was the moment where
I,
he was looking for Grogu, because remember the crew of the ladies kind of ran the distraction, right? And then Mando went on his own, and he ran into Grogu, and Moff Gideon was holding him hostage.
it
With the
was
dark
just
saber.
it was just such an exciting fight. You know what I'm saying? But you're right, because
That
Din
scene too, though. Yeah, it was cool.
finally catches up with Grogu, and of course, Moff has the dark saber right over him. Kind of egging him on and saying, you know what, you can't. But then you see Moff in his cunningness saying, well, you know what, I'm done with Grogu. You can take him. Just let me go. Leave the ship. And of course, everybody knew what was going to happen afterwards. You
Mhm.
know, there was no sense that he was going to let Din walk out of there with Grogu. Um, and we get into that awesome battle.
Yeah, Giancarlo Esposito was way quicker and more brutal with a dark saber than I expected, and he's a scary dude. But like, he's more of a cerebral scary dude, and he had some like Vader
That
rage
man got
behind that
skills,
dark
boy.
saber. Yeah, dude, that was a really good fight. Like, he freaking caught the Beskar spear with one hand while Din was trying to stab him with it. I thought that was like a pretty hardcore moment from Giancarlo Esposito in the fight choreography.
There was
Really
one. There
cool.
was one move that Din pulled off that just knocked me to the floor, because I think there was, he had the staff down, and he kicked it, and it just came right around and just came down on Moff. I was like, wow, that is an amazing move right there.
That was a Khotun Khan attack
Yeah,
with the spear, is what it was,
that
from
was
Ghost of
beautiful.
Tsushima. his stupid special that I couldn't get away from.
The choreography was amazing.
Yeah. hmm And I thought that just the way that again Giancarlo Esposito plays every scene, it's just he's just chews the scenery. He's so good at being menacing. It's so awesome. I love him as an actor so much, and I can't wait to see him in more stuff. And I hope he somehow returns in this show as well.
Well, they didn't.
Yeah, I'm sure we haven't seen the last of Moff Gideon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. So
Yeah.
so after like basically the duel happens, right? Um, and he loses the saber, right? Do you think that this was planned?
I think it was.
Yeah,
I feel
I
like
do.
it was. I really
Definitely.
I
do feel
agree.
like it was. I
Yeah,
feel like this would be perfectly in Moff Gideon's like game plan to I think maybe it's like he was like, all right, well, I'm gonna take him on. If I can kill him, then great, you know. But if I
But
don't,
when
then
he
cool.
spared him,
Let him take the saber. It's also
yeah,
like why when actually now that I think about it, I don't think it was planned. I think that it was just in the moment he realized that he has an
no,
opportunity, right?
that
No,
was
I
the,
no, I disagree.
No,
no.
no,
I
listen,
disagree.
hear me out, right?
it's a
Because
Yeah,
very calculated risk that he
no,
took
no,
because
listen.
literally he had the saber, the staff to his neck, and if Din was any other person, Moff would have been ended right there. So
Sure, but no, listen, that's what I'm saying though. Like it's like I think that Moff was surprised that Din didn't kill him, which is why he said that like you're gonna leave me alive. Interesting. And it's in that moment that Moff realized that like he's won the dark saber. I'm free of Bo-Katan's vengeance.
yeah, I can get with
But
that.
I think it
I
was
think
just
that,
in that moment.
which
but I
would
think
make sense for the character because he is so smart and intelligent. He would
well,
take advantage of a loophole like that.
see, but here's my
Yeah.
thing. Like, I think it was something that he entered into the conflict knowing would be an outcome because either way, he was like you said initially, he was like, either I'm going to kill this guy or he's going to kill me, or if he beats me, I have a conflict that I can raise against somebody who's also trying to kill me that has been a thorn in my side. We would assume since she's been chasing him for a while to get the dark saber, destroyed like an entire
Right.
shipment that he needed for like his imperial ISB purposes. So I
Right.
think that like maybe it wasn't totally calculated, but I think in like he's the kind of person or the kind of villain that's thinking
Very
while the battle
opportunistic.
goes on,
Yeah.
how can I take advantage of this
Yeah,
guy?
he's opportunistic. You know,
Psychologically.
he saw a moment. He realized, like right in that moment, he calculated the rest of the basically everything that was going to happen. Right,
Yeah.
he knew that the Dark Troopers were going to come back too. You know, he had all this stuff. Like he had all the information. Right, he said it in the episode. He was like, "It's my job to know everything." So
hmm
he knew that like the Dark Troopers were going to come back. He knew that if he lost the saber in that moment, that he is free of like Bo-Katan's like again her goal of fighting him and defeating him and stuff. So that sets up the next scene where uh Din comes to the what do you call it on a ship on the when they go to the
The
bridge.
deck, the
The
bridge.
bridge.
Yeah, the bridge.
Number
The
one,
bridge.
you have the bridge.
Right. So
Oh, wrong star.
he escorts Moff Gideon to the bridge while wielding the dark saber, and Bo-Katan sees this, and she's like, "What happened?" And everybody thinks that she's talking about, Moff Gideon, or rather, you know, uh, Din defeating Moff Gideon and capturing him, but she's talking about how is it that Din has the dark saber, and Moff explains everything that like now in order for her to like accept the role of Mandalore, she needs to defeat him in battle. He can't just give her the dark saber. Now, here's
Yeah.
what I want you guys to discuss because this is the biggest point of contention. I know that it's the biggest issue that I think it's the biggest issue that Walt has with the episode. So I'll let you start it off. But I will then tell you why I don't think it's that big of a deal.
Okay. Well, my thing is
Challenging.
this, and thinking about it, there may be reasons why she's acting the way that she is, but this is not the first time that Bo Katan has been put in a situation where somebody has handed her the dark saber. It happened.
Wanted to. Right.
No, did, because
Well,
Sabine Wren gave her the dark saber in Rebels.
right, because Moff Gideon at this point, to clarify, he had stated that in order for Bo-Katan to take power and become the ruler of Mandalore, she had to take the dark saber in battle. It couldn't be given to her, right? But in Rebels, they like, who was it that gave it to her? You, like I said, you've
So
seen it. I
Sabine
haven't seen
Wren.
it yet.
It was
It
Sabine
was Sabine
Wren,
Wren.
another
Yeah.
Mandalorian,
Right.
which gave her the saber, and she took the role of the Mandalore. She took power based off
Right.
of that. So, in one sense, the scene didn't make sense because you know what? It's happened before, and she didn't have a problem with it then. Now, the only thing I would say in thinking about it is that maybe her fault in it was that now here I am in this situation again, where instead of me taking the dark saber in combat, it's being given to me again. So now that's the only reason why I can understand her trepidation for just taking it from Din. Because if it's any other reason besides that, then it doesn't make sense because we already have in canon, um and again I stress in canon, that this has already happened before. The precedent has already been set. So why are you so upset that it's happening again? Now the only reason I would say is because you know what, it's happened once before, and now this is the second time I'm going to become Mandalore without proving myself in battle. That's the only
Well,
thing. But
here,
I
here,
did have I that was one of my things that I had a problem with the episode, knowing how well Filoni interweaves everything. Now maybe there's an explanation coming down
well,
later in
I
one of
have,
these
I have, I have,
shows.
I have my thing that I want to say, which is the reason that I don't think that it's that super consequential is because it's actually not written that wielding that the only way to become Mandalore is by wielding the dark saber, and it's also not something that's universally agreed upon by all Mandalorians either, right? Because this was actually something that was only sought as seen as a true Mandalore. They would only recognize the true Mandalore if that person wielded the dark saber, but that was only from the Death Watch faction, I believe, right? The true Mandalorians, they elected their Mandalore, so it's not all Mandalorians. It's not something where it's like this is the only way to become Mandalore. It's not something that like it has to be done this way. I think that it's something where there's room for interpretation and there's room for ambiguity too.
Well, here's my thing. This is like, I'm not even going to
And
talk
I do
about
want to
how it
hear. I do
fits.
before you go. I'm sorry. Like after you get your
Yeah.
point, I do definitely want to hear from AJ because I feel like AJ has a lot of I guess dark saber, history in him.
So here's my thing. Here's my thing, and then AJ, I'll throw it to you. um, I'm not even going to talk about it in the context of how it fits into Rebels. Let's say I don't care. Let's say, because you made a point after we saw the episode, which is a semi-fair point. Like, if you didn't invest in Rebels, if you didn't invest in Clone Wars, and you're just watching this, like, who cares, right? Who cares
Right.
what you have to do with the dark saber? But here's my problem. At a certain point in the episode, Bo-Katan herself says that Moff Gideon basically can yield to her, and she can take the saber. That he can get it from, or she can get it from him while he's alive. He could have yielded to her. Why can't Din do the same thing? Why is she being so? I mean, it's not exactly a plot hole. It's not exactly a problem. It's a mild inconsistency. I'm not going to harp on it too much, but it kind of didn't make sense based on her own words. I think it was earlier in the episode. Like I said, she's like, as long as the Moff yields to me, I don't care what you do with it. You know what it was? It was when Cara Dune basically says that she wanted to capture Moff Gideon because he had
Well,
ISB information. She says, I don't care what you do with him as long as he yields to me.
right.
So
So
what? That didn't make sense to me.
hold
That's
on,
the
hold
thing that
on.
didn't make
So
sense.
so the thing is, in traditional combat and especially in traditional fencing, yielding is accepting defeat in battle.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
It's not
I get
surrendering.
that.
So she's still so in her mind, she still needs to battle Moff Gideon, and he needs to accept defeat at her hands by yielding or being killed in battle.
But if he then what happens if he didn't yield and she killed him, but they didn't battle? Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're getting into some weird areas of like,
I
how
mean,
does this stuff
I
exactly
think
work?
I think that like it was implied by her saying that as long as he yields to me, I think that it was implied that she was going to challenge him and to battle, and for her, as long as he yields to it.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. What if he didn't accept the challenge? What if he just put the dark saber down and said, like, because he clearly understood the history of it, at least as far as it is currently, because
See,
it's been
here's where there's
difficult.
a lot of ambiguity. You know what I mean? This is where like we'll never really know until we get more backstory. So that's
Well,
why I
maybe
wanted to
AJ
ask
can tell
AJ.
us
Yeah.
a bit more. Like, what do you think, AJ, about the way that they handled this?
So, a couple things.
Hmm.
First off, to point to what Gabe said about there are other ways to become Mandalore,
Hmm.
that way being elected kind of got thrown out of the window once they said, you know what, let's be a warrior culture again.
Hmm.
The second thing,
I gotta dispute that, because the thing is that like it's only one faction that that still wants to be warrior culture. You still have the pacifist faction of the Mandalorians, or rather, what they call themselves, the true Mandalorians.
who were they?
They call themselves the true Mandalorians.
Yeah, there
And
is
Bo-Katan.
a peaceful
Yeah,
sect of
and those are the ones
Mandalorians.
that believe in electing their Mandalore.
Okay, so that's one.
Where are they?
They were
I'm
all
just saying, like,
That's
Mandalorians.
what I was
Well,
also
I
where
mean,
are
right
they
now,
now?
the thing is that they're all scattered. So, but the thing is that there are
Okay.
Mandalorians that don't necessarily follow that way.
all right, granted,
But
but
the thing about it,
if the
But
point is you're
Bo-Katan
trying
does.
to rally your people to take your planet back, that's going to be the best way to do that with a symbol of power.
this was
Sure.
the saber was traditionally seen as a it was almost like he said, a symbol of power, and the reason that this dark saber existed, past the fact that it was wielded by a Mandalorian Jedi Knight, but it was the thing that united the clans together. That was all the clans understood the significance of the dark saber. And over time it became that tradition, whereas like whoever wields the dark saber really is the one that should rule
Right.
Mandalore.
Um,
So
uh,
you're right in the sense
but
that there was a tradition of um voting in, kind of like the Mandalore, but especially in recent times and with the canon that we've seen so far, that tradition has been replaced by the tradition of
well,
whoever is the wielder of the dark saber
see,
is the one
I
that
have to dispute that. I have to dispute that because the true Mandalorians came after the dark saber was already implemented.
say that again.
The again, they call themselves the true Mandalorians, which are the pacifist Mandalorians that believe in still being a warrior class, but pacifists and electing their Mandalore. They came after the dark saber was already, you know, in play, as far
Oh,
as canon goes. Or
but who is there more of too? Like, I think this all kind of
well,
boils down
again,
to, like, they're
that's the
there,
thing.
but
That's
it's
the
like
thing
saying,
that
like, okay, there's a couple of people that
well
disagree.
that
Like,
that's what I'm saying. So
So
like we're talking about like entire factions, not just like a couple tribes, but entire factions. However, right now we don't know how many Mandalorians are there, but because of that, again, like I think that there's ambiguity to like the whole dark saber and taking power. Like where once when Pre Vizsla was Mandalore, and during that era, the only way to be the the you know the
mm,
Mandalore,
I don't know.
which was
I don't
in
know.
that well in again in that time, and the only way to be Mandalore is to like win the to earn the saber in battle. And even then they called themselves, like, the Mandalore was called the secret Mandalore. he wasn't
Yeah, but
he
but
wasn't the true outright Mandalore.
I
and
think
but
that's all kind of irrelevant because we're talking about Bo-Katan's frame of reference in this episode. We're not talking about the true Mandalorians. We're not talking about the other
Well,
sects.
I understand,
We're
right?
talking about what she wants to do to unite the clans of Mandalore.
and
And what she
currently,
wants to do is possess the dark saber. It's
right.
like
Right,
Andor.
but like
It's
again,
like Aragorn's sword. Like, it
we're
is that
talking about
symbol
the
of
point.
power that,
We're
what was
talking
that?
about the point of the difference. Again, I so that's the thing. My
Yeah.
my point is, yes, I think that like the lore of the dark saber in the Mandalorian culture, from what we know that's canon in outside of film and TV, doesn't matter for the episode itself. I mean, I was the first one to bring that up, you know. But to Walt's point, I think that like there's a little bit of ambiguity there that gives us room. So I still don't think that like it should be at fault either. Anyway, I feel like we have been harping a little bit on the dark saber, because we do got to get to
Man,
our huh what.
Mando. First off, I
What?
want to make this point.
Oh
Oh
my
yes, Eli,
god.
please chime in.
Go ahead.
Is
I
this actually is this the thing that pissed you off about the episode?
no
Is
no
this
no
it?
no 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 no. I predicted this.
What?
I predicted it. I did
What did you
it.
predict?
That he would wield the dark saber.
Oh, you did
Mando?
predict that Mando would wield the dark saber. You
Yeah,
did. He did. I
but
remember this.
he is going to be man.
I
I
don't
don't
think
know if
he's
he's
going
gonna
to
be
be
Mandalore.
Mandalore.
He's gonna. I said this too. This is also my next prediction.
It doesn't feel like it's in his nature, though.
Yeah, but he's
You
gonna
know,
be forced into it. He's the type of character who would be forced into a role like that.
the hero's journey.
Yeah,
The Mandalorian Civil War between him and Bo-Katan.
yeah.
It's gonna be like Iron Man versus Cap, except
And
it's because he has the dark saber and she's really pissed about it.
did they
Right.
announce the what when the show
We're gonna get
Mandalorian?
into that. We're gonna get into
Yeah,
that
yeah,
a
yeah.
little
So
bit later.
so
Yeah.
we do got to
Hold,
kind of move on.
hold that thought. Hold that thought.
Yeah. So here, obviously, Moff Gideon's been captured. We have like the setup between the dark saber, this, that, and the other. Uh, Moff Gideon plays his trump card, so to speak. He says he's trying to create conflict between Mando and Bo-Katan, and at this point, the dark troopers come back because, as you said, they can fly and they're
Mhm.
not human beings, so they can also breathe in space.
Yeah,
So
they
they
were
just
fine.
make their way back to the ship, mosey on into like the hall, and start beating down the door to the bridge. And at this point, they're all kind of screwed. And Moff lets them know, like, oh, they're gonna kill everyone in this room except me, of course. So
And
Moff,
Grogu.
this is Moff's almost like this is where it can be seen as like Moff's plan was this all along. Um, I don't know exactly if it was, but it
Well,
can
he
be
knew he was
perceived as
backed
that.
into a corner at
Yeah,
least because
he yeah,
everybody was dead, and he predicted
right.
that too, like you said.
It's again, it's his final trump card here, right?
Yeah,
And this is where we get the actual title of the episode come to fruition, because even though they were there to rescue Grogu, they're the ones that needed rescuing. And what do we see? We
An X-wing?
see an X-wing, one single X-wing make its way.
Ooh, I
And
got it
who do
right.
we know in the galaxy that likes to always have his trusty little X-wing somewhere?
Wedge Antilles.
What?
You know, at first
Wed-
I thought that was
Wedge.
just some rando rebellion dude that was
Yeah.
like, "Hey, I think I heard a distress call out here. Let me check it out."
It's Big
Yeah.
Big's Dark Lighter, right? That was his name.
Yeah,
No,
it
it
was
wasn't
Big
Wedge or whatever. The person that came about had a robe, had very dark saber skills,
Yeah, yeah.
and a green
Yeah.
saber,
And the glove.
and a glove.
It was
It got
Michael
really
Jackson.
obvious at Green Saber.
Right, it did. You know, the only thing that didn't make it, I had a little bit of a question because they didn't show his face. So we're obviously talking about Luke Skywalker. It's already been,
He,
I think, spoiled all over the internet.
Grogu
If
found
you're,
somebody. Yeah, all right.
you know,
He found
but
the Jedi.
yeah,
He found the Jedi.
but he, you know, for a moment I wasn't sure, just because of how he was fighting, and it just seemed like so dark and like, you know, like very aggressive, very like, you know, like Darth Vader-esque, which in hindsight does make sense, right?
Apprentice.
He's
He re- he re-
Anakin's son.
The fighting style reminded me a little bit of The Apprentice in Force
Mm.
Unleashed, especially that very end where he took one of the Dark Troopers and crushed it.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, did you see the overlay video of like the final scene of Rogue One and then Luke's scene?
oh, it was basically the same thing.
Yeah, it was basically the
Yeah.
same. Like it was
With
just
Vader,
it was
yeah,
awesome. You
Mhm.
know, so we get like
rampaging down that hallway.
we get
Yeah.
like basically like, what was it, like 2 minutes worth of awesome like Jedi, all the Jedi powers, you know, and all the Jedi coolness in
He
full
had his Vader
display.
hallway scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did.
No, but it
didn't
wasn't a hallway, it was the entire starship. And he single-handedly destroys every single one of the dark troopers, which one almost killed, well, definitely put a beating on Din Djarin at the very least. And it shows like how powerful this Jedi had to be in order to be able to take on all the dark troopers with ease. You know what I mean? And of course,
Absolute ease.
so
I
what?
mean, that was
How do you guys feel about Luke Skywalker being the Jedi that comes to the rescue?
You know what? I thought I wasn't gonna be okay with it. It turns out I was. um,
same.
it was like at first, yes, it would have been cool to see Mace Windu Ezra Bridger's kind of out of the question now that you have the Ahsoka Tano show.
Yep.
So you don't have many other candidates left. And again, while I would have liked Mace Windu, that was still, in some sense, a little far fetched. Because then you'd have to go through all the hoopla of, well, who even are you? Oh,
There's
you're from this place? How did you survive from this place? And things like that. But I'm not, again,
Yeah.
I'm not against it, but there are just so many hoops you'd have to go through as opposed to just going with this guy that we already know.
Yeah.
if you can
I
explain
And it also makes
Palpatine.
sense because at this time he has his own Jedi Academy.
Or at least
Well, he hasn't started it
starting
yet.
it. He's gonna
He's
yeah,
start.
we
starting
didn't,
it,
Yes,
yes.
don't
starting
confirm
it,
that.
already doing it. You get the point.
Yeah,
He's
that's
full
I mean, I
blown
feel the
Jedi.
same way. I feel the same way. I felt the same way about it too. You know, it's just I wanted to see Cal Kestis kind of be brought to live action, um, but it still wouldn't have made sense because like I think that you would have needed a veteran Jedi that would have been attuned. Like again, it could have been Mace Windu, but yeah, there's a lot that you need to explain there. But
And
with
why would
Luke,
he even go?
you're right.
Well,
You know,
you know what though? Like it could have been Cal Kestis in a way. Like I haven't played the game yet, and he's from I'm
what?
sorry, I haven't played it yet. It's on
I
Game
haven't
Pass,
either.
Oh my
so I
gosh,
gotta jump on it. Geez, what's the game called again? I'm sorry, it's
Fallen
not the
Order.
Force Unleashed.
Jedi Fallen
Fallen Order.
Order. Jedi
bro, you're
Fallen
Right,
Order.
failing at life if you haven't played
right.
that game. That game is
But
that good. That game was amazing.
Yeah, it is
I like
really
the
good.
kid who I like the kid who's from Shameless who plays the character of Cal
Yeah.
Kestis. He's a very good actor as well. But like he could have been in this as a Jedi, as a more powerful Jedi, because this is a while after that game. This is like 20 or 30 years after that game took
Right.
place. Right? So he would have
Um,
been more experienced. It could have made sense, but like to be honest, like me in my head when I was watching the scene and you saw the X-wing and your first thought is like, oh my god, that's freaking Luke Skywalker. It has to be Luke Skywalker. Like that's his signature.
yeah.
Like, right?
Oh,
But then you see him going down the hallway. My head's like, oh my god, it's Cal Kestis. It's Cal Kestis. And I was like, wait, no, it's Ezra Bridger. Doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And then you see the green lightsaber, and you're just like, it's freaking Luke Skywalker. It's none of these other people. It has to be Luke Skywalker. And then you see the glove, and you're just like, there's no way it's anybody else. Like this has to be him. And then he takes the hood off, and your head explodes. Was kind of how the whole scene went for me, to be honest. I mean, what about you, Eli? Like you said, you didn't like the end of the episode. Was this one of the reasons
is this it?
why?
Is this the
I'm
season? Is this it? Is this it?
yes, I'm so
This is it.
against this. I'm
Oh,
so
why?
against
Why are you
it.
so against this?
He
Who would
This
wanted
you have
Waste
wanted to see?
Windu.
I okay. First off,
Who would you have wanted to see
I said
instead?
Waste Mindu.
Mace Windu? You wanted to see
Go
Mace
on,
Windu?
Eli. I'm
No,
sorry.
Waste Mindu.
Waste Mindu. No, but I'm sorry. I just feel like Luke Skywalker has a spotlight all the time.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And this would have been the perfect opportunity for Mace Windu. I mean, this is very far fetched, but this would have been a an opportunity for a show for Mace Windu.
For a
Maybe,
show.
maybe for like when how he survived and stuff.
Yeah,
Interesting.
that's not a bad. That's not a
But
bad
again,
thought, you know?
while I like that, why would he even go
I
to
don't-
Grogu?
I don't know, but maybe
You don't even know his disposition after the whole Jedi Order falling.
But that's
I
why
mean,
you
he
get the
disappeared,
show
right?
to explain that.
But again, I
Hold on.
just
Now,
don't see
AJ,
Mace Windu going for Grogu.
if
I don't. I'm sorry.
right, if you think about it, because he exiled himself, it wasn't like Yoda went looking for Luke. It wasn't like Obi-Wan went looking like Luke found all these people, right? They didn't care to continue training Jedi. You figure Mace Windu would have the same thought process. But Luke Skywalker, who just, roughed up Darth Vader and Palpatine, probably looking to reestablish the Jedi in the universe, hasn't had the experience of failing at it hard like Mace Windu did, like Yoda did, like Obi-Wan did, like Luke did eventually later on in his life in The Last Jedi and such. Like it wouldn't really make sense for Mace Windu to want to
Yeah.
train Grogu, which is
Yeah.
why it would have been awesome. But the only person who it really made sense for it to have been is Luke Skywalker of the
know.
Jedi that we know that are still alive.
I know.
There's one other thing too. That Mace was also really against Anakin being any kind of anything to do with the Jedi, just because of like his emotions and all that. And if he had sensed that with Grogu, I think that because Mace
He
is
would
a
have been turned
hardliner,
off.
he would have also been turned off. I mean, if Ahsoka was turned off, Mace would have
Yeah,
been way more turned off.
Okay,
Mace probably would have like tried to kill him right there.
okay. So
that's
Mace
true.
Windu doesn't work. But even still, I don't like how Luke Skywalker gets the spotlight. It's like Gogeta Blue and Vegito. Vegito gets all the spotlight. Gogeta Blue is literally sitting there in the shadows.
Okay, let's move the catharsis for the fusions for later.
No, but still, Luke Skywalker.
It makes sense with Luke. And the other thing too is that like there's a big outcry, and I wanted to like kind of talk to Walt about this. There's a big outcry on social media with like the whole like, oh, why are we bringing no Skywalker in this? Well, for me, it's this is still the Skywalker saga. Like this is still in that timeline. Like, are you just well, you can't have a show in that timeline and then like never ever mention it or never ever bring it up in the entire time that we're living in this timeline, especially with this being the actual middle and crux of the entire saga. Not the end of it, but like the middle. This is like the most important part of the saga. Really, right at the end. It's right at the end of Return of the Jedi, right? Like, how can we? What are they all just gonna like act as if what happened with Luke and Palpatine and Darth Vader just didn't happen?
You can mention it, but like you don't have to like full on bring Luke Skywalker into the show. Like not like that.
Well, I don't think that he's gonna become like one of the main characters or even one of the co-stars of the show, though. Right? I think that this is gonna be one of those things where like he's gonna be a peripheral character. They'll show him like they did here a couple of minutes. Obviously, this is the introduction, so it's gonna be a little bit more impactful. But I think that like in the future, it'll be where we might have a couple scenes with him, but not necessarily, or even one whole
He
episode
really
with him,
just
but not
came for Grogu.
necessarily.
That's it.
But
Yeah, like I think that it's going to be one of those things when we see Grogu again, it may be with like I would hope that it's at the end of his training or at least at some point where he's gotten control of his powers
He's a teenager
and
by then.
and yeah, maybe and then like Din comes to rescue him or whatever it is. You know what I
Listen,
mean?
listen. My thing. Listen, I with the Luke Skywalker thing, and that's the other slight problem that I had with the show, with the episode. But again, the rational side of me, just like for all the reasons that you guys put out, it makes sense.
yeah.
It makes sense that Luke would be the one to answer the call. My disappointment, I guess, is again with this whole thing that Star Wars tends to do, where you have an entire universe, right? And you boil it down to the Skywalkers and any of their relations or any of their friends or any of their acquaintances. And you see it on all of their properties when it comes to something. Who do you expect you're going to see? It's going to be an original trilogy character. It's not going to be anybody else. It's always going to be either Han or Leia or Luke or Chewbacca or R2D2,
Mm-mm.
who also made a cameo in this. And again, like I said, the rational side is always going to say Luke made sense in this episode. But one of the reasons why I loved Last Jedi as a movie, as an attempt, because it was willing to say, you know what, we need to expand this universe because there are dozens of stories that can be told in Star Wars that doesn't have to always go back to
Right, but
Skywalker.
Yeah,
And
but
that's, again, this is my personal, disappointment. Again, makes total sense that Luke is there because you know what? Luke has just defeated the Empire, right? And the Empire is in the stages of trying to rebuild. So it makes sense that he's reaching out. And again, going back to Jedi Fallen Order, where there's this list of younglings that are force sensitive, that the Empire was trying to get, and we were trying to keep, they were trying to keep it from them. It makes sense for him to try to rebuild the Jedi Order again because he kind of sees that there is, you know, um, an imbalance right now. People are trying. You got the New Republic who's trying to get up, and start their reign in the universe. You still have remnants of the Empire around, which we all know from That's where the First Order rises from. So it makes sense that he's trying to stabilize everything. And what does he know? He knows that Jedi's may or may not work. So why not rebuild the Jedi? I get all of that. I really, really do. It's just my personal disappointment that we are still in this um phase where we're not trying to expand the universe. You know
But
what I
all right,
mean?
so but that doesn't
That's
make any
that's
sense to
my
me.
that's well, but that's what I'm saying. It's my personal disappointment. I'm telling you that it makes sense that it was Luke.
No,
I
no,
really, really am. You
I
know,
know, no,
I'm not arguing that point.
I know.
You know,
It's not that doesn't make sense. What doesn't make sense to me is how could you could have expected anything different? Because again,
but
we're
I
watching a
didn't.
show.
I
So then
just
you like
hope I just hoped that they would have had the temerity to say, you know what, we've all seen Luke Skywalker before. You know,
right,
let's see if we can. You didn't have to bring a Jedi in that point anyway. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? There was no. The story didn't demand a Jedi at that point. You know, again, it makes sense. Again, it makes sense because we want to move Grogu away from Din and we want to continue his training. I get that, but my personal disappointment, we're still
right, but
stuck in the Skywalker saga.
well, yeah, duh, because
Still,
But
you
Mandalorian
know,
takes place in the middle of it. You gotta remember that, like what you said, yes, that in the Last Jedi, it was
but that
great. They
was.
expand. Hold on, they expanded and all that stuff, and like it's like forget the past and all that stuff, right? But that happens 30 years from this current point.
But here's my
We're still in
point.
the thick of it.
But here's my point.
Hold on,
I just want to say this one thing, and
All right,
then you can go. The reason why I was so excited about the Mandalorian is because a sorry, this is the only point. It was an expansion of the universe. We were coming up with a brand new character that would live in the Skywalker universe, but
right.
not be directly tied into it. It was an attempt to say, you
I
know what,
think
this was these. We have the Skywalker thing going on over here. These are the other stories.
yeah,
And
but
that's
see,
why I was excited for the Mandalorian because I want to see those other stories. We've
Okay,
already
that,
had
yeah.
Skywalker.
I
I
kind of get
right,
that.
but like,
that was my thing. But now, second season, guess what? We're back with the Skywalkers again.
right, but again, so that's the thing. Like, it's not that we're back with the Skywalkers. We've been there the entire time, but we just had 2 seasons completely just expanding the entire universe with new characters in every single episode,
Which
without a
builded,
single one of the
but it
characters
builded,
up until Boba Fett. Not a single one of old characters being brought back.
and that's
So
why
so
I
I feel
love
so
Mandalorian because
right.
it's
So
an
but so
expansion
then
of the lore.
right. So then if you have 16 episodes for which only one episode brings back a trilogy character for 2 minutes, does that then discount the entire show?
I'm not saying that, and again, like I said, it makes sense for the story. It really does. But you know what? I kind of was hoping deep down, this is just wishful thinking that we were going to step away from that. And you know what?
Well,
The biggest moment of the series was Luke taking Grogu. You cannot say that that's not it because
I
everything
mean,
built
biggest moment is
to
Boba Fett.
no, but honestly though,
No.
the entire 2 seasons was leading to this moment where Luke was going to come and take Grogu. So
I don't know. I don't
implicitly,
know.
this becomes about Luke.
I don't think so at
That's
all. I don't think
That's
so
the
at
way I see it.
all.
that's the reason why I loved Rebels was because yeah, it had stuff to do with like Darth Vader and the Emperor, but it didn't go entirely it didn't it barely had anything well, it had to do with the
Rebels had a fair amount to do with
yes,
the
but like
Yeah.
original
it
trilogy.
didn't
What?
have it didn't have like characters actually coming into the show and saving
Darth
the day and
Vader?
stuff like
Leia,
that. Because I the
Rebels is I will say Rebels is a little different though because it was happening in that was part of the war, you know.
okay, but
But
yeah,
I see your point. Again, we have other characters
Yeah.
doing other things aside from
Well,
I
but
don't
Vader
I
and
don't
Skywalker
the
and all of
reason the
this.
reason the reason I don't think
Guys, you know what I think made the
wait,
choice here? And this is the thing that I think kind of just basically shoots down every argument. And again, I know that you say that it makes sense, but your personal feeling is that it shouldn't have been Luke. But the minute you introduced a force sensitive main character who was kind of the point of the main character, as in Din Djarin's arc, you knew a Jedi had to be in this, and because of the time period it's in, there's only one Jedi it could be. Whether emotionally it didn't pay off for
Why
you,
couldn't
Walter,
it
or
have been
not,
Ahsoka? Why?
because we
Why?
already got Ahsoka.
But
She already
what?
turned
Wait,
him down.
And Ahsoka
she
can't
said
change her
no.
mind.
Yeah. So
Well,
Ahsoka can't change her mind. She can't sleep on it and say, you know what? Maybe it's a good idea that I do take Grogu because of the fact
Right, but
that she
well,
has
but
all
if
these
we
negative
hold on.
feelings.
But the
if
If
we take
we
the
reason,
stories from
the
Clone Wars and
wait.
Rebels, Ahsoka swore off the Jedi Order a
yeah,
long time ago and has not gone back for
dude,
decades.
guys,
Wait, wait.
guys,
That's
wait,
in the
wait,
canon,
you know,
right?
you're arguing a point that I've already conceded. I
Yeah.
understand that Luke had to be the guy.
All
I'm
right, let's
giving
move
you
on.
my
Let's
Wait,
personal
move on.
wait, wait,
opinion.
wait.
That's
Let's move
all
on.
it
Wait,
is.
wait.
right.
My
I
last.
understand. All right.
You know,
Wait, wait.
I'm not arguing with you guys. This is
All
just
right.
my feeling. I wish that it wasn't Luke. I get why it was Luke, but I wish
Yeah,
it
yeah.
wasn't.
Like,
That's all
Wait,
I'm
wait,
so
saying.
wait,
Eli,
wait, wait.
Eli, what's up? Eli, what's up?
Why does it have to be Luke that saves the day all the time? Why is he the hero of every story?
Okay, let's move
Literally,
on.
because he is
Let's
the
move on.
hero of the
We've made,
original trilogy.
we've made that
He's
point
not the
10
hero of
times.
Mando.
We need to
He's
move
not
on.
the
We
hero of
need to move on.
Mandalorian.
All right. All
Actually,
right.
the
So
hero of the original trilogy
let's
is
table this discussion because I feel that this is going to be a whole episode.
Yeah,
In
we're
itself.
not.
We do
We
got
are
a couple
moving on
things that
from
we
this
need to
easily.
get to. We don't have
Yeah.
too much time left in the episode, but we do got a couple things to get to, and I want to get to one of the most important parts of the show. I think the most impactful part, which is the goodbye between Din Djarin and Grogu, right? So, you know, Grogu, like it's very clearly visible that Din doesn't want to let Grogu go, and I think that like it seems, and I'm not a parent, but it seems like this is one of those things where like he is trying to maybe even manipulate the situation. He tells Luke that Luke is calling for Grogu, and Grogu looks at Din, and Din is like he doesn't want to go with you. Din might just be saying that just because he doesn't want to accept that Grogu needs to go with him and stuff, and he's trying to make the decision for his child.
Yeah.
And then Luke says that he wants your permission. And at that point, he goes, he's with Grogu. Grogu, they're looking into each other, and Grogu motions to the mask, to the helmet, and then takes off the helmet. He breaks his creed once again, but this time in front of everyone,
In front of his friends.
in front of his friends and under no duress. Right? Previously,
Yeah.
when he did it, he was under duress. He had to do it, otherwise it was going to be, he was going to have a chance at getting Grogu.
Yeah. In
This
season
time
one,
he
he was
did it with,
dying, and
yeah,
then this time he had to do it to get Grogu.
yeah.
Right. The second time
This
around.
time
So this
he
is the
did
third
it
time.
for his child. He did it because he needed to see Grogu before he leaves, and he wanted to like grant Grogu, I guess like his last wish before he leaves, because it seemed like Grogu was asking him like, "No, I want to see the real you," for the
You know
first
what I
time. Even.
thought? You know what I got vibes of a little bit?
Mm.
Let me look upon you with my own eyes.
Yes, I was gonna say that.
Oh wow!
No?
Yes,
Right?
yeah.
I think
It
so.
felt
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, it felt like that
'Cause,
for sure.
I mean, it wasn't exactly that, but with Luke
It
Skywalker
wasn't, but
present in
it
the
was
room
like
at
that
the moment,
moment, yeah.
you know?
And I think that that's actually why it feels like this is like an actual there was finality to this. I think it's maybe because subconsciously we have that like kind of callback to the end of Return of the Jedi when Luke has that scene with Anakin. So says goodbye. Grogu goes into the hands of Luke. We get a little moment with R2D2, which personally
Yeah.
I thought was unnecessary, completely unnecessary. But that was done to set up, the droids, show, I think, or at least build excitement. And you have like the slow walk away, with Luke and Grogu, and the show ends with the door shutting.
Can I say something about the Grogu moment
Yeah.
really quickly? I don't think it was unnecessary at all. Again, I think it was a throwback because when you have that moment where Luke picks up Grogu, he has a moment of realization like, yo, this is the same race as Yoda. I feel like I saw that on his face. And I think that was R2's reaction in the same way. He's like, here's a baby of like a speed, because remember, Yoda and Luke are the first beings that R2D2 and Luke are the first beings that Yoda had seen in who knows how long, decades. And I
Yeah.
think that they were finding a way to kind of tie back to that moment as well. I'm not saying that, I guess unnecessary is maybe
It's
necessary is maybe not the right term, but I liked it because I thought it was supposed to be kind of a throwback to that moment of like these guys kind of all met before, quote unquote. That's just my
maybe,
thought.
but I just felt like because it looked like R2D2 and Grogu were having like a conversation, which I don't see how that could have been possible. But
No.
um,
But it was definitely also an adorable, like, here's the last time you're going to see our like new Disney mascot in Grogu for a little while. And like,
yeah,
here's the
so
old one in R2D2.
I
Like,
guess.
here's the
But anyway,
adorableness meeting the adorableness. But moving on. Yeah. What?
so I think again, like to me, I think to everyone here, it felt like there was some finality to the to Din Djarin's arc through this
Yes.
scene, through the end of this episode. Is that how everyone kind of feels?
Yeah, it did feel that way.
And then
Felt like
given
a finale.
Meh.
Felt
and
like
you
a
know what?
finale.
Like I also want to bring this in, right? Because we get the end credits scene with Boba Fett and all that. He we'll talk about a little bit more about that. But I feel like with that, it's almost like hey, like this is the end of Din's chapter, and now we're letting you know that the next chapter of the Mandalorian is going to be Boba Fett's chapter.
Okay, but
Season
see,
3.
I don't agree with that. Not by
You
a
don't
long
think that that's
shot.
what's going to happen?
No, I don't agree that this is the end of Din's arc. Like, no.
Oh no, I don't think that it's the last time that we'll see Din. I just don't think that the next season of the Mandalorian is going to be Din.
Yes, but
I think I
here's
think
my
that he's going to come
problem.
back
I-
maybe at some point in the future, or maybe after they do like a Boba Fett season of the Mandalorian, maybe there'll be another season of Din as the Mandalorian. But it just because the third season of the Mandalorian was last week, it was revealed that it was going to be December of 2021, but they didn't reveal anything about Boba Fett yet. And then they say that we're going to also have a Boba Fett show also December 2021. I don't see how that's possible.
But what I'm griping over is that, sure, you have a sense of finality with Din and Grogu, but how do you drop a bombshell like who's gonna take the dark saber and
Well,
just leave it at, oh no, you know what?
Well, that's what
but
It's
you.
not a big deal.
it's kind of happened before
Yeah.
because with Filoni, how did Rebels end?
How-
Rebels ended with Ezra Bridger in the outer regions and Sabine and Ahsoka teaming up to go find them. End of story. So Filoni has
Yeah.
you do see that he's done this before.
I
You
still
know,
don't like it.
so
I really don't. That leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
but it's happened before. You know, like I said, he's not he always has the ability to come back to stories, which look he's doing with Ahsoka now. You know, Ahsoka that whole thing with Rebels, it was hard stop.
Okay,
Hey,
but
we're
here's
looking for Ezra. You never got anything out of that.
Yeah.
Go forward a couple of years ago. Now we're gonna come back to that.
here's my
So,
problem though. With Ezra, it'll take time to settle that. With something like the dark saber, where the
They were
two
right
of them
there.
are there right now,
Yeah.
despite being shot up. But come on, we all know that's Beskar. Really? Really?
I don't find that as much of a problem. With that. I think you can end it that way and continue to tell that story in other properties.
Here's the
Maybe.
problem.
Yeah. I mean,
Uh,
yeah. Sorry.
Oh, you know.
Okay. Here's my problem with an ending like that. You want to leave something for later, something like that, and that's not the end. You have to have some sort of sense of what would you call it? I guess
What a finality
Like
to
a,
it.
like,
no, not a finality. It was too much of a finality for me.
like a
I just
closure to.
no, not a. It shouldn't be a closure, a full on closure. I felt like they should have left some space for maybe like I forgot what it's called. Like
If you wanted to end it and like put him in a bar somewhere picking up bounty hunting again, fine. But don't leave something like the fate of the dark saber as like the future.
no, but
I mean,
you, what are the endings that you call that aren't like fully like
Cliffhangers.
cliffhangers?
cliffhangers.
Leave it at that. Why
But
do we need
you
a
know,
full on happy ending?
well,
Oh,
I don't think that we need a full on happy ending. Again, this is the ending of a arc, not the ending of a series. And I think it's okay to give us the ending of a series, right? Because think of like The Boys, right? Like we had like the first season ended kind of, with a cliffhanger. But then the second season ended with some sort of finality where like the arc of that story is done,
Mhm.
but it doesn't mean that their entire story is done either, right? Like there's the ending of The Boys season 2 left, some things to interpretation, some things for the future, breadcrumbs for like the future seasons and stuff. So we clearly see that we have stuff that's going to be developed in Din Djarin's next arc, which is not going to be about Grogu. That's the thing. And I wanted to kind of talk about that before when we were kind of going crazy over Luke Skywalker, but this is why I don't think that the show is now about Luke Skywalker. It's still about Din Djarin because we still need to explore. Now it's going to be focusing on the Mandalorian culture, the bringing the band together, or banding them together, not the band together. And the whole dark saber storyline, and explaining that for the people that do not know what the dark saber is and what the whole backdrop is with Death Watch and all that stuff, right? We have so much for Din Djarin's story moving forward.
Seems a
But
little weird.
So maybe there will be a Mandalorian season and a Book of Boba Fett season,
yeah,
kind of
that's
Weird.
concurrently.
that
It's gonna be weird.
It would be
again.
weird,
Yeah.
but this is also why I don't believe them when they said last week at the beginning of their investor call, like, we believe in quality, not quantity. But here's 10 new series plus another one that we're going to drop next week. And two of those series are going to debut at the same time in the same world.
You know what I find
But
interesting is that the Book of Boba Fett was not announced because you know what, at that point Boba Fett was already a thing. It wasn't like they were
Yeah.
holding it back for anything. So
Right, right, right.
why not? And this is why I do think that the Mandalorian season 3 will be about Boba Fett because
Right,
you had the opportunity to announce it. Everybody
right.
was already talking about a Boba Fett series. There was no reason
Yeah.
to keep it
Yeah, there
away
was
from
rumors.
everybody, so um I
And
really,
and that's, yeah, I agree with you. That's
yeah.
exactly why I think that it is going to be one. I think it's going to be one conjoined series, or rather that's going to be like the Mandalorian Book of Boba Fett. You know what I mean?
but
So,
Yeah.
again, that's part of my problem. How are you
yeah.
going to leave something as big as that and
Oh
then just completely segue
no.
to,
Again,
oh,
just like Walter
okay,
said,
Now
just,
I,
just
I
like
don't
Walter
like
said,
that. That's like
hmm,
I'm trying to scratch. I'm trying to
you just
pick
want
through
it.
my
You want
skull
you
to
want
get
your
to my
cake and you
brain.
want it now. That's what it is.
I
You
get
know
it.
what? I have to agree with the dark saber needs to be kind of resolved situation as well because again, Moff Gideon made this whole pomp and circumstance and like built it up. Bo-Katan built it up. She was trapped.
Exactly.
She
No,
acted trapped in that moment. So then what the hell happens after that? Like, does she like assault him after like Grogu leaves? Like, what does she do? What happens in that moment? She's gonna be like, all right, well, mission accomplished. I'll see you guys later. Absolutely not.
That's not
That like
necessarily true.
the
She might
there's
just
the
sit
there,
on
uh,
it.
no, there's a huge implication and a huge moment that takes place right after that. It's not like
I don't think
something
it has to.
like
I
these
don't think
guys.
it has to.
It
no,
has to. Because
No.
again,
no,
what
no,
was
no,
the
no,
point of
no.
the conflict? What was the point of the conflict between Moff
You
Gideon
can
and
always
Din
go back
Djarin
to
and
this though.
Bo-Katan? We just erased
But
it
the
then,
way
You
right?
you
can always
built
go
it
back
up,
to
you
this. You don't have to.
Yeah.
You don't have to
Yeah,
say that this ends because remember, Boba Fett and Mando, they're not in the same place. So you can have all those other things happening and tell the story after.
Yeah.
yeah.
You
Yeah.
It's
don't.
like
You That could be season 4.
let me let's just put it this
It
way.
doesn't have to be the next one. Eli, please.
Have you ever read? Well, you guys have probably. You've read a book
What?
where it's telling you from different perspectives.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
basically
most books do.
yeah. It's just basically it's just like
It w-
each chapter of a different perspective.
right.
It's picking up where it left off.
Nobody's saying that this is not a thing that's going to come back to it because again, we saw it before in Rebels. That thing was a huge thing where it's like Ahsoka and them, they're leaving. What happened? We haven't had that yet. Guess what? We're probably going to get it
See,
now. With the same thing with this. This is not saying that we're not resolving the conflict. It just says we're not resolving that conflict right
Okay.
now because we're going to tell
My
another
final thought.
story.
My final thought is I'm just going to say this. I'm a little mad about that at you guys because I got roasted when a certain video game decided that they wanted to take that resolution and stretch it out a little bit longer. And I was told that that was a
Well,
stupid way to tell the
But that's
story.
that's
different
a
in a
different
video game
It's
when
not different. It's
they
not.
force you
totally
to play a game that sucks and that's boring and that's annoying, and then they force you to replay it all over again from a different perspective. It's different from sitting there and watching it and enjoying it at your own pace versus being forced laboriously to do stuff.
You don't have to play the game in one shot. Nobody forced you to do that. I don't think it's any different, but I'm not gonna go back and forth on this. I'm just very upset at you guys and you suck. But let's move on. Let's move on.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Does somebody else have a point? No, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
I,
I'm,
oh,
I'm
I
done.
thought
I'm
Eli
done.
had a point. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm done. I'm done,
All right,
guys.
all right. So this episode is obviously very, very contentious and emotional.
It was.
a
Let's
little bit.
cool it down a little bit. Okay.
I'm crying under
No more arguing points about Boba Fett. No more arguing about Luke Skywalker and all that stuff. Uh, but we
Yeah.
do need to talk about something that's very important that's happening to the Star Wars universe, and it's
Yes.
the Marvelification of the Star Wars universe. Clearly, this was all done as a chess game. I was wondering the last episode. I wondered why did they have to have the Disney call the week before the final episode of Mandalorian, and it was done specifically to kind of because they knew how big this episode was going to be, and they didn't want the investor call to get in the way of everything that was just set up, right? The Luke Skywalker and his training of Grogu, the Disney, the Disney, the dark saber, uh, transfer of power and all that stuff. And what's
Mhm.
happening is that they're creating these tidbits to then link all these other shows to then eventually have one big major event that you know basically give it the Avengers feel or
Yeah.
treatment and stuff. And it's essentially kind of following the Marvel recipe, which personally I'm
Disney
not a fan of. I thought
Disney's
it was
playing Dejaric while everyone else is playing Star Wars checkers,
yeah.
hollow checkers.
I the reason I'm not a fan, and
Uh,
I want to give this point and then hear you guys out, see what you
yeah.
say. The reason I'm not a fan of this is because it's cool. It's always cool when one person does it. It sucks when someone else copies it because it's just the it's like the surprise effect of it all like is gone, right? Like it's not as cool when DC tries to create their own universe because Marvel already did it. You know what I mean? So you got to either do it different or it just doesn't feel the same. And I hate that it's happening to Star Wars because now it becomes something super convoluted when Star Wars is already convoluted.
Yeah.
Is it? I thought it was simple.
Yeah.
I thought it was all very simple.
I
You
think
know,
Star Wars might be more convoluted than Star Trek.
my take on this is, and I've been thinking about this, and especially within this episode, I've kind of changed my mind just a little bit because of the conversation that we had. But for Marvel, it works well in that format because they're coming from a comic book format, which is used to doing that. You usually have,
Yeah,
the
crossover
main,
event.
right, exactly. So for that property, it makes sense and it works really well for them. Star Wars is something totally different, and you can't apply the same formula to every single property that you have. And
Yeah.
I think that's the problem here. I think as I we were talking about it today, I'm more against the Marvelification of Star Wars, and not for nothing, but the announcement of all those Star Wars properties all at the same time was really overwhelming. It was just
Yeah.
like
Yeah, it kind of
there's
was.
people were complaining about Star Wars fatigue. If you didn't have it before, you're definitely going to have it now because you have everything that's going to be piled on top of each other, on top of each other. And again, you know, for me, I want to hear different stories. I don't need all these stories blending into like an Avengers style event in Star Wars
Yeah.
because it
Yeah,
doesn't
I
make
don't want
sense to do that in Star Wars, you know?
it doesn't. It doesn't because again, this is supposed to be and has always been a galactic opera. It's the storylines themselves is the big event. I don't need all these different crossovers and like because then what ends up happening is that like when you have that event that happens, you're gonna be looking for all the fan service from all the respective communities, right? You got the Mandalorian community, then you have the Rogue Squadron community, then you have the Jedi community. And if they don't get their fan service in the event, then all of a sudden that side just got like, they got forgotten. And then it's, bunch of boohoo fans and stuff. You
Here's
know,
the
but like
other.
yeah,
I'm sorry. Here's the other piece, and I'm gonna make this real quick, and I'll leave it to you guys here. The other piece is now that if you really want to enjoy Star Wars, you have to watch all these shows. It's no longer where the casual fan can go into
yeah,
into a theater and enjoy the thing, because now a lot of these things are going to be precipitated on the fact that you know what happened in Ahsoka, or you know what happened in Rages of the New Republic. You know, you're and this is the problem that I think Marvel is going to have also, because now you have all these shows that tie directly to the events of the films and vice versa. So for the casual fan, you're really pushing them away. It's great
yeah,
for us
yeah,
as geeks because you know what? We love to consume that stuff. But for the people that are not as invested into these properties like we are, that's
yeah,
going to be a very big problem, because if you're just thinking I'm going to go to the movie theater and watch this one movie and understand it, you're going to have a big problem, because you know what? There's a comic book that ties into that. There's now a book that ties into that. Got to watch the video game. Got to play the video games. Got to watch the series. There may be a mini series. There may be a movie on Disney Plus. You got to know all of that knowledge. It becomes work to watch
yeah.
these
And then
things.
and not only that, you also got to kind of have some idea of like what was previously canon that's not canon anymore because it might be brought back in.
Yeah,
Right, like when the dark saber got introduced, it's like, well, what does this mean? Well, let's go ahead and research and review what was canon, because now that might be a fact in the future. It might have a bearing on the future. So it's just it's already, I'm already overwhelmed. Like I already know that there's shows that like I'm probably gonna watch, but I'm gonna be annoyed that I'm watching it because I'm gonna have to be forced to watch it. I don't want to be
exactly.
forced to watch it, you know.
But don't you guys think, in a way, if you look at the Legends universe, it kind of was that way already? Because in every freaking book, somebody runs into Luke Skywalker, or into Chewbacca, or into Moff Tarkin, or into, okay, there were some extended characters, but like Grand Admiral Thrawn kept coming back.
But
Like,
you didn't need
Mara
to.
Jade.
You didn't need
These
to know
people
those
all,
things. That's
Yeah.
the thing. You didn't need. This was almost, well. That's what it was. Legends really was just fan fiction. It
Yeah,
didn't
that's what
tie
I'm saying.
in. It didn't tie into the main movies. It had characters from the main movies. It expanded
Yeah,
the movies in a different way, but there it wasn't inherent that you had to know the Thrawn trilogy to understand what happened in Return of the Jedi. You know,
yeah,
it's all
exactly.
fan fiction. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah. You know what? Like you put it, you said it exactly right. When it came to like, for example, with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it kind of becomes work. Like I think everybody that was mostly or semi invested in the Avengers and Endgame, they all like rewatched everything in order to kind of get caught back up on like everything that like happened so that they're ready for Endgame. Now imagine if you had to do that for the Star Wars universe. You got to watch the 9 films plus all these shows, for this major event that's happening. That sounds crazy.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see how involved it gets.
Yeah.
But we do know that Fennec Shan is going to be in the cartoon. Ahsoka's getting her own
Yeah.
show. Boba Fett getting his own show. I mean, I
It's a
guess
lot.
we have to wait
This
and
already seems overwhelming to me. So
I mean, Kevin
personally, I
Feige
just
pretty
want to
well.
see Mandalorian, Boba Fett, and Obi-Wan. That's it. I was happy when we got Obi-Wan confirmed, and I was like, oh man, sweet Obi-Wan show, and that's it. And like an Ahsoka rumor and all that, I was like, oh, it'd be amazing if we had an Ahsoka show. And then they dropped the investor call, and I was like, wait, hold up. This is a little this is a much bigger meal than I ordered.
Yeah,
It
it was
feels like
like, it was like a Marvel reveal. It was
Yeah,
like, here's Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and WandaVision, and Loki, and this and that, and also there's a New Mutants movie that, whatever, like, you know what I mean. It's just, it was kind of overwhelming. I have to agree on that, and it did have the look and feel of
I
like a
think
Marvel
at best
show
they should
reveal.
have just done two at a time. Like if you really wanted to do this, okay, let's run WandaVision and Winter Soldier and Falcon. That'll be our two Marvel shows. Okay, what'll be our two Star Wars shows that'll come out next? Okay, let's do Ahsoka and Obi-Wan. And do it like that.
I guess we'll see when they all come
Yeah.
out.
all right.
Like a big smoke
I
Yep,
think that we've bickered enough. Do
I
we
don't
want to give
argue.
our?
You argue. All right.
You guys were poking the wolf. Well, one person was. Well,
Yeah, I didn't do it that
one
much.
household was.
I only did it sort of. I'm not in the same household as them, even
And
though I
it's
share the same
it's
last
it's
name.
all in fun. It's
I
all in
know, of course
fun.
it is.
You
It's
know.
all in fun for the fans,
Yes.
all
Oh
the fans
man.
for the fans. We're like little teddy bears in person. Um, so
Yeah.
I think that we should just quickly give a season review. I am going to start off. I am going to give it a 7.5.
Okay.
I love the Boba Fett review. I love the
Mhm.
last 3 episodes particularly, but I felt like the first half was a bit of a chore. Didn't make sense in a lot of areas. Action was great, but and fan service was cool, but just didn't necessarily do it for me.
I will give it a higher rating. I will give it an 8.5. Um, I think in the end, it ended in spite of for season one ending with a really really high note with those last 3 episodes. I think that this ended better. I think that I wasn't sure that I would like the idea, like you, Gabe, of them moving away from Din Djarin too much. But in the end, despite a few hiccups on that, they did bring the focus back to him mainly. Even though they had a lot of peripheral characters, and again, there was a little Star Wars fatigue in terms of here's Luke Skywalker, here's Ahsoka, here's Bo-Katan, but they all served a solid purpose. And I give it a little more leeway because like last season I had an idea that a lot of those episodes, while they were generally filler, I enjoyed them, and I figured that they were going to set something up. Even if they weren't the highest quality, they fit mostly into the narrative for me. um are there a couple of things again that were imperfect, or a couple of elements that I would have taken out maybe of the early season? Probably the biggest one I would say is, I guess, the running errands for Pelly thing. I kind of think that didn't sit exactly right with me because, like I said, she was like, "Here's one lead." That lead dried up in Cobb Vanth. He immediately went back to her, and she was like, "Here's another lead." I thought that was kind of a weird way to set those first 2 episodes up. But yeah, like for me, it was like I loved it. Each episode as we got closer and closer to the end was better and better and better. I loved the episode with Bill Burr as well. I thought that was a nice way to kind of escape the Jedi narrative from the last few episodes a little bit. There was no Grogu in that episode. Uh, there was in every other episode, I think, this season. But yeah, like for me, I think it just got better and better and better and better. And it had moments of weakness, but they did, for the most part, add to the overall story. So yeah, that's my
I gotta say one thing.
Mhm,
Just because you brought up the first season, and one thing that I noticed is that I didn't get any. The thing that made the first season, especially the ending, so special.
mhm.
We didn't get a Quill or IG-11 moment.
Yeah, nobody passed away. I
We
was
didn't have
expecting that.
not just passed away, but like like the moment of like like the sacrifice and all that. Not just passing away, but the sacrifice. And Quill was like rescuing Baby Yoda in the first season, and then like he was
Mhm.
a success. We didn't get those moments,
I
and
thought we were, because I had predicted in one of the
right, but
podcasts 2 weeks ago that I thought that they were going to lose. I thought it was going to be an Empire Strikes Back kind of
I that's
second
what I
season
thought
ending.
too, and we
Yeah,
didn't get that. But like, not saying that there's anything wrong, but just in
no,
comparing
hmm
this season versus last season, I do think that the first season was better performed. We had
hmm
much more shock
hmm
value and more lore that was expanded in this one, but I feel like from performances standpoint,
hmm
we didn't really get that. I mean, like I still think Quill was one of the best characters in the entire Star Wars universe. I think IG-11 was awesome, and I also think that the client was awesome. And I feel like we didn't really get portrayals in like that outside of um uh Bill Burr's character. I think he had probably the best performance in the entire season.
So
he was pretty great, and his counterpart, the Night King, was pretty cool too.
I'm
They played off each other well. So, wait, I'm sorry, Walt. Go ahead.
yeah,
Go ahead.
I'm gonna go next because I want to expand on that point because that's one of the things that kind of made me enjoy this season a little bit less than season one. And the mere fact that you mentioned Quill and IG88, I think that's the biggest problem that we had in this season.
IG-11, no?
I mean IG-11. I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
I think that's the biggest problem that we had in this season because we didn't have characters that we kind of went along with the ride with, and so with IG-11 and with Quill, we got to know them in that season, and that's why when they did die and they did pass away, those were really impactful moments because we got to know these characters. This season, we really didn't have that. I mean, aside from Mando and Grogu, what other character do you know that really spent the entire season with them? You know,
You're right. Actually, I don't think that if any of the characters that showed up in this season, except for obviously Grogu and Mando, if any of them died, I don't think I would have like cared
because
the
we
way that I
spent
cared
we
about Quill.
spent no time with them.
Oh, Boba Fett.
You know, but we
Well,
spent
I mean, Boba Fett's he can't be killed, so he's
We spent the most time with him, though. He was kind of like supposed to
yeah,
be, I think, the
and
character development
and
character this season, leading into season three.
that's
and
true.
see that's the problem because you know what, when was Boba Fett introduced? Within the last 3 episodes. And
Yeah,
so again with this season, basically give me the 3 episodes that ended the season and there you go, because for me the first half, the first 5 that we got really didn't do anything. Now they were great episodes in the
Wait,
singular,
including the Jedi?
huh?
Because
Well,
remember, you're
but
including the Jedi in
but
that
that's
one.
wasn't that part of the last 3 episodes?
But Boba wasn't in that one. That's why I was
No,
being.
it's
But
not.
what I'm saying is this, the last 3 episodes were the most important ones,
Oh, okay. Okay.
yeah,
And that's my point. If you
to the
take
story.
Yeah,
Oh,
if you take away the first 5, there's really nothing that you're gonna miss.
so you also
No,
found the Bo-Katan episode to be a little bit of an extra that didn't need to be there, I guess.
well,
Yeah,
no, but
I
but
think so.
but
Okay.
my thing is this, in the singular, like I said before, they're all great episodes. None of the episodes were bad, in my opinion. But if you take the season as a whole, you could have gotten rid of those first 5, and you'd be none the wiser when it came to the story. And so, for me, the first season still remains the standout. And for that reason, I'd give this particular chapter, what is it, 9 through 16, I'd probably give it a 7 in terms of the storytelling and the cohesiveness from the beginning to the end. Again, really fun episodes. I mean, the spider story, the when they crash landed on that ice planet. Did you really need that story? It was a great story. It was a great episode. It was fun. We had some horror elements, which I love, but it didn't do anything, you know. And I think that's the biggest disappointment for me is like you have a very shortened season. You want to make the best of it, and I don't feel that happened this season. And it did happen. We did have that middle lull in the first season that kind of got expanded here. And so, I can't really in good faith say that this was better than season 1.
All right. And AJ, Eli, what about you guys?
So here's the thing. Originally, I was gonna give this an 8.5 and
Mm.
trend along what Jose was saying. That I at least felt it flew very well. In terms of like the filler, I mean, to me, it didn't feel that much like filler. I mean, there was a point where I was like, okay, let's get to the main point now. But for the
Kids.
most part, it flowed really well, and it didn't really, it wasn't something I could really nitpick at. But when Walt raised the idea that we didn't really spend like a lot of time on characters, amazing characters like we had last season, IG-11 and Queel, then I kind of sat back and I was like, well, you're kind of right. So as much as I did like it, I also have to agree on that point. So uh, as consequently, I'm only bringing it down by half a point. I was still very satisfied with this season,
Okay.
except for the ending. I will never concede that. Sorry, I will never concede that. That is okay. Sorry.
Wait, I'm sorry. Concede what?
The Bo-Katan dark saber
Yeah,
thing,
that.
right? Yeah. Mhm.
I will not concede that.
Okay.
Okay.
So, all this in mind, my rating is 8 out of 10.
Okay.
Eli.
I'm, I mean, this is yeah. Let me just put it to you this way. I might be exaggerating just by a little bit when I say this, but it's a glorified CW show.
Whoa.
Oh my God.
That's a
Whoa.
Okay,
little.
no. Okay, exaggerating a lot. Okay, I realize,
Yeah,
exaggerating
that
Holy
was
a
high.
lot,
crap.
but
Dang.
it still has some CW elements.
What
What?
exactly?
Where?
Not
Like
focusing on
what?
characters first off, filler episodes, and what are some other CW elements?
He kind See, here's the thing. You kind of
Right?
have a point, but
Right?
to say that it's a CW show outright, I
No.
no.
It's a majorly glorified, like Jesus glorified.
No. No.
Like-
It does have some
It
elements.
retains
okay, fine,
elements
fine,
of it,
fine,
but to
fine,
say
fine,
that no.
fine. It is not a CW show at all whatsoever, and I was majorly exaggerating, but it still has CW elements. Sorry,
I
5.5.
think those are just. I think those are just bad show elements, not CW elements specifically.
CW is a batch.
5.5. Wow,
Wait,
that's
I didn't hear that
harsh.
part. You said 5.5?
Maybe a
5.5.
6. Maybe a 6.
Oh my God.
6 is
I've
6.5.
I've
Oh,
decided
you
to
don't have
resign
to go
myself.
up on our account. Just
No,
I've
I guess
decided to
It's
elaborate.
resign
your
myself
it's your
to the
opinion.
fact that Eli hates everything.
Yeah.
no, I
Just
don't.
You kind of
you've never. I don't think you've ever given anything a great review.
DBS
I'm just saying.
DBS
I think
Broly,
you should like. I think you
100%.
should start a YouTube channel called
I
Eli
hate
Hates Everything,
everything.
and you just
No,
he's
like
gonna
you
be the
attempt
new
to
Angry
score everything
Joe.
out of a 10, but you never get past a 4.
DBS Broly was 100%. Avengers Endgame was 100%.
He's very, very
Banshee.
picky when it comes to stuff. I will give him that.
It
You know,
has
So
to have a sad ending.
Dang, you just said Dave
no.
Filoni and John Favreau can run CW and it'd be the same.
5.5.
Wow.
That's bad, man. All right. 5.5. Well, let's compare. I'm looking at IMDb because I was just curious. The season was an average 9. Yeah, the average of the episodes was a 9. The highest rated episode of this season, these are fan reviews, was of course the last one with a 9.9. So that's what the fans thought about it. And of course, everybody also kind of agreed that chapter 10, The Passenger, was the weakest episode with a 7.9.
Yeah.
But every other one this season is basically above an 8.5 or a 9 per the fans out there on IMDb. So we're a little bit more particular, I guess. We're not that
I guess so.
into it.
So I
So, all
think
right.
that's gonna
So,
do it for
yeah,
us. Yeah. Well,
I think that about
thank you
does.
guys for coming along the ride. It was a very fun ride. Quick reminder: we are going to take a few weeks off. To enjoy the holidays, take a little bit of a break from the badness. Kind of clear our heads of all this Boba Fett and Dark Saber and Luke Skywalker tension that we have.
Yeah, we're just gonna enjoy some stuff for a few weeks
Yeah.
instead of having to analyze it, which is cool too. But
Yeah, I know. We get to kind of just go straight up be back to being fans, which we always
yeah,
are. We're always
yeah,
geek fans and nerds trying to bring you guys the
You
the
know,
news and the juice.
just doing
yeah,
casual
Um,
things like raiding army bases.
yeah, yeah. And it's not like we basically do the podcast in our WhatsApp group anyway. When we're not recording it, we're just arguing there the whole time, regardless.
so,
So
but thank you guys for joining us. We hope that you have a wonderful holiday coming up if you guys are celebrating, and we're looking forward to seeing you guys in the new year. The support this year throughout COVID, um, and everything through the ups and downs, and kind of switching to remote recording and all that stuff. It's been challenging, but it's been fruitful. I think because we've found new ways to make the podcast better, more fun, more engaging for you guys, and yeah. Once again, please like, rate, share, and subscribe. Share
Yes.
this episode to your biggest Star Wars nerd friend that you might know that is not already listening to this. And let's keep the communication going and stay in touch through social media.
Let's do that. Yeah. Again, thanks to the fans from all of us for an awesome year. Thanks for downloading our episodes. Thanks for listening to our episodes. So many of you took the opportunity, and it gave us something that we really enjoyed doing. Not that we didn't enjoy doing it, but it was something for us to do during the pandemic, and it actually was valuable to me in that way also, because we all needed, I think, a little bit of a routine that was fun, and this is a lot of fun. And just again, thank you to the fans. Yeah, I mean, is there anything left to say, guys? I guess not, right? Yeah. So I guess we'll say one last time this year, or two things again.
Boba Fett lives.
3 things. And once again, of happy
That's
holidays
3.
out there. And as always, stay geeky, my friends. We'll see you in the new year.
Gogeta
Thank
Blue
you.
is better.
He is.
We'll get back to that.